name may derive from Earic words used to indicate that it symbolized the Lion of Judah.
Is it dreadlocks?
Lion of Judah.
It's Rastafari.
Okay, sure.
Dreadlocks.
Dreadlocks is correct. Messianic dreads name one of the mansions of this Jamaican religion that opposes the downpression of Babylon.
Rastafari.
Yeah.
Rastafari. Rastafari.
Is correct. Dreadlocks are worn to these gatherings that involve smoking ganja and are sometimes named for the Queen Nyabingi. A holy day that shares its name with these gatherings celebrates Haile Selassie's 1966 visit to Jamaica.
Oh my god. Is it like Hope?
Groundation.
Yeah,
Groundation.
30 points. Yes.
What is it called again?
Groundation.
Groundation. 30 on the bonus. At the timeout, I have a score of 340 for Thomas Jefferson, 220 for Rockford Auburn.
How many toss-ups, sir?
Going into 16. So 5 left.
Alright, so we gotta get one.
Good luck to both teams. One woman known for this trait is told to eat noodles vomited up by beggars. In another story, that woman born with 6 hairs obtained this trait by eating only silicate. A series of trials that involved returning gold utensils and guarding goats allowed a man who had the yellow millet dream to obtain this trait. The Queen Mother of the West co-hosts feasts with a food...
Immortality.
Immortality is correct for 20.
That's crazy.
Your bonus, the temperance movement in this city took off after a member of the Jenks family refused to drink a glass of wine to celebrate her wedding. 10 points each. Name the city where the Declaration of Sentiments was signed during an 1848 event attended by Lucretia Mott.
Seneca Falls.
Seneca Falls is correct. This Seneca Falls native edited the temperance newspaper The Lily, in which she advocated the wearing of a Turkish dress.
Oh, is it Bloom? Is that like the Bloomer? Sure. Bloom.
Bloomer is her name.
Oh my God.
Amelia Bloomer. A 75th anniversary commemoration of the convention included a march from Seneca Falls to Rochester, where this woman was arrested for voting in 1872. The 19th Amendment is sometimes named for this woman, who appears on a dollar coin.
Anthony.
Anthony is correct for 20. Toss-up 17. This author ended a book by questioning the meaning of so tiny a being as the sea lace. Dorothy Freeman potentially began a romantic relationship with this author after moving to a seaside cottage in Maine. This author wrote a book which describes a strange blight of white granular powder in its first chapter, A Fable for Tomorrow. This author won the National Book Award for The Sea Around Us.
Oh, shit. Coats.
Nope. Coates is not correct. Which was inspired by her time as a marine biologist in the Bureau of Fisheries. In her most famous book, this author highlighted the detrimental effects of bioaccumulation on human health and ecosystems. The dangers of DDT were described by, for 10 points, what author who warned against pesticides in Silent Spring?
Carson.
Carson is correct.
I did my marine bio project. Oh,
The Sea Around Us. But I've never read the book.
Correct. Your bonus, critics of this play suggest that its plot was based on its author's marriage to Armand Béjar, the illegitimate daughter of his mistress. 10 points each. Name this play in which Arnulf plans to marry his ward Agnès, who ends up falling for Horace instead.
Is this somebody in? Oh, School for Wives,
I guess.
School for Wives.
School for Wives is correct. The author of The School for Wives had earlier prompted threats of excommunication by writing this other play in which Orgon hosts the title religious fraudster.
It is Tartuffe.
Yes.
Tartuffe.
Tartuffe is correct. This French playwright wrote The School for Wives and Tartuffe.
Moliere.
Moliere is correct for 30.
The Sea Around
Toss up 18. All right, I will. A rapid construction method developed under this ruler made use of standardized talatat blocks. This ruler was accused of sending gold-plated wooden statues, instead of solid gold ones, in letters sent by King Tushratta of Mitanni. This ruler held a Sed festival unusually early in his reign.
So Ramses the Great?
Is not correct.
I was going to say that.
It's okay.
Possibly indicating that he initially co-ruled with his father Amenhotep III. The artist Tutmosis depicted this ruler's wife in a polychrome limestone bust. At this ruler's capital of Amarna, archaeologists found a relief depicting this ruler worshipping a disc with hands emanating from it. For 10 points, name this husband of Nefertiti and father of Tutankhamun, a pharaoh who promoted monotheistic worship of the sun god Aten.
Amenhotep IV.
I can prompt you.
Like Octanon.
Yeah.
Nice. I just wanted to say that.
We'll was worried I wouldn't be able to accept it at all. Here's your bonus. These structures were discovered by European modernists after Alma Mahler took photos of some on a tour of the U.S. that were later published by Walter Gropius. 10 points each. Name these structures. Charles Demuth painted a concrete and steel example of one of these structures in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in his painting, My Egypt.
Wait, what? Oh, okay, sure.
Pyramid?
Wait, that's not right. That's not.
Answer.
Pyramid.
Grain elevator.
Oh.
This architect included some of Mahler's photos of grain silos in his book Towards a New Architecture. This modernist advocated for the radiant city.
The Corbusier.
Corbusier.
The Corbusier.
Grain silos were a common subject in constructivism, an art movement that flourished in this country. The poster Beat the Whites with the Red Wedge supported this country's Bolshevik party.
USSR.
Yes.
Can we have the
1
score
2
checks?
points. Certainly. Going into toss-up 19, it is 370 for Thomas Jefferson, 300 for Rockford Auburn.
So we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need one.
Here is toss-up 19. Good luck with teams. This book imagines a mind wandering from an ongoing war to Roman pennies to illustrate what it calls a train of thought. Like St. Anselm, this book references the Psalms in a passage refuting a fool who has said in his heart that there is no such thing as justice. This book argues that we should always seek peace and keep our contracts in a list of laws of nature.
Leviathan.
Is correct for 20.
Nice.
Your bonus, the Hougoumont Hotel in this city is named for the last convict ship to arrive in Australia. 10 points each. Name the state capital that grew rapidly following a gold discovery at Kalgoorlie. This city was once the capital of the Swan River Colony.
What? Is this like the Australian?
Answer.
one?
Carson City.
Carson City.
This is Perth.
I was.
British convict ships ceased operating with the closure of a convict station in this place. The Peace of Utrecht formalized British control of Minorca and this strategically important territory at the entrance to the Mediterranean.
Gibraltar.
Gibraltar's correct. Many of the convicts on the Hougoumont had participated in the 1867 Fenian Rising, just like this city's martyrs who were executed for bombing a police van. The Guardian was founded in this city following the Peterloo Massacre.
Oxford. Oxford martyrs. Oxford.
Manchester. Last toss-up. This type of radiation is reflected at shallow angles via grazing incidence optics in Wolter telescopes. The first comprehensive survey of the sky for this type of radiation was performed by a satellite proposed by Riccardo Giacconi, Uhuru. Binaries featuring a donor star and an acceptor neutron star, or black hole, predominantly emit this type of radiation.
Gamma.
Gamma is not correct. This type of radiation. Depending on its energy, this type of radiation can be hard or soft. This type of radiation is studied by NASA's Chandra Observatory. The black hole in Cygnus is named for this type of radiation, which it emits at wavelengths of several angstroms. For 10 points, Wilhelm Röntgen discovered what type of electromagnetic radiation with slightly higher frequency than ultraviolet radiation. X-rays is correct. Your bonus. It's not the Caribbean, but over 200 divers have drowned while traversing the arch in a blue hole in this body of water. 10 points each. Name this body of water where snorkelers explore the sunken city artificial coral reef near Hurghada, an Egyptian port city south of the Sinai Peninsula.
Red Sea. Oh, yeah.
Red Sea.
Red Sea is correct. The remains of the Umbria in this country's largest Red Sea port is a popular shipwreck diving spot. This country's rapid support forces evolved from Abara and Baggara militias in its west.
Okay, west. Let's see. Could be like Saudi or Yemen. Could be Yemen.
Answer.
Yemen.
Sudan. Red Sea divers can spot these animals performing cultivation grazing on seagrass beds. Northern Australia is a hotspot for this marine animal and a relative of the manatee.
Dugong.
Dugong.
Dugong is correct for 20.
Dugong.
That is the game. I have a final score of Thomas Jefferson 400, Auburn 330. The protest is moot. Good game, both teams.
Good game.
right.
Yep.
Good luck, everyone. Oh, do I have a thing to read before we start? Let's find out.
This round.
Once again, this round is sponsored by Art of Problem Solving.
let's go.
See our flyer in the NSC program, and congratulations to everyone on your fantastic seasons. All right, now we can start with toss-up 1. Good luck, both teams. In 2011, a former ruling dynasty of this modern-day country hired Cambridge historian Christopher Clark to write a report justifying the family's claims to reside in historical palaces. One school of historiography argues that this country went from monarchy to democracy on a special path. The so-called 2.0 version of the historian's dispute in this country.
Germany?
Germany's correct for 20.
Good buzz.
Ian, your bonus. This organization provided $1,200 for a woman to travel to Shanghai and meet her mother's long-lost children. For 10 points each, name this fictional organization headed by George Shu that was founded in San Francisco in 1949. During a meeting of this organization, Jingmei took her deceased mother's place at a mahjong table.
The Joy Luck Club.
The Joy Luck Club is correct. While telling parables about recognizing evil, a grandmother believes a laughing baby is a reincarnation of this goddess. The last section of the Joy Luck Club is named for this goddess.
Any
didn't
ideas for
read the Joy Luck
goddesses?
Club.
I did, and I didn't.
Ian.
Fake fans over here.
Queen Mother of Heaven.
Yeah, Jacob.
Yeah.
Nice.
This Chinese-American author of The Kitchen God's Wife also wrote the Joy Luck Club.
Amy Tan.
30 points. Toss 2. In one story by this author, people who do not believe that the title figure is omnipotent are threatened with homelessness. COVID-19 lockdowns popularized a story by this author about Vashti and Kuno, who...
Lahiri.
No, that's not correct. Who video call from isolated chambers. A story by this author ends with the body of the snob Mr. Septimus Bonds being found hurled from a considerable height after a boy takes him to meet Achilles on the title carriage. This author of The Machine...
Forster.
Forster is correct.
Sorry. Was Snob in power?
Was what?
Was Snob in power?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
But that was not 10 points. Your bonus, in 2022, newly elected Kenyan President William Ruto overturned a decade-long ban on these products and called for importing 10 million bags of them. 10 points each, name these products. In March 2023, the Mexican government banned import of the BT form of one of these products widely used in the U.S.
Oh, that makes sense.
Should we go with it?
Sure.
Answer?
Avocados.
These are GMOs.
Oh.
Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga has accused Ruto of being a puppet of this man for ending the GMO ban. This philanthropist wrote the books How to Avoid a Climate Disaster and How to Prevent the Next Pandemic.
Gates.
Bill Gates.
Oh, wait,
Yeah,
yeah,
Bill
Bill
Gates.
Gates is correct. This country's ban on GMOs is part of a disastrous campaign of organic farming ultimately led to a 2022 uprising in which protesters stormed the house of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in its capital of Colombo.
Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka is correct for 20. Toss-up 3. Umar established one form of this practice called fitrana that is based on sawa, of dates or barley. In addition to their namesake action, the apostates refused to perform this activity after the death of Muhammad, resulting in the Ridda Wars. It is disputed...
Like, burial?
Burial is not correct. It is disputed whether this practice is directed at jihad within the umbrella term of fi sabilillah. The ushur in this practice are administered by government councils in Pakistan instead of an imam. The nisab determines eligibility for a form of this practice, contrasted with voluntary sadaqah. This practice is the subject of the third pillar of Islam and benefits recent converts and orphans. For 10 points, zakat advises Muslims to perform what action with 2.5% of their income for the poor?
Charity?
That's fine, yeah. Almsgiving, charity, donation, etc. 10 points. And your bonus, according to gate control theory, this structure's dorsal horn screens out slow-moving painful stimuli when faster non-painful stimuli are also present. For 10 points each, name this tube of nervous tissue that links to the brain in the central nervous system.
The spinal cord. Spinal cord.
Spinal cord is correct. Gate theory proposes that noxious stimuli are screened out by inhibitory signals passed through these neurons, which link sensory neurons to motor neurons in reflex arcs in the CNS.
Interneurons? Sure. Interneurons?
Is correct. Nice. Gate theory was invigorated by the discovery of peripheral pain receptors like TRPV1, which are induced in the lab using this chemical. This natural product from a plant is used in topical creams to treat peripheral neuropathy.
Oh, I don't know, maybe hydrocortisone?
Sure.
Hydrocortisone?
This is delicious capsaicin. You get 20 points.
Sure. Oh, that would be the opposite.
Toss-up 4. All right. Cool. Alex Steinweiss innovated the widespread usage of these artworks in the 1940s. One of these artworks is designed as a mock newspaper claiming to contain the work of the genius Gerald Bostock and partly titled The Linwell Advertiser. One of these artworks by Roger Dean depicts a wooden spaceship flying around a splitting planet Earth. A collage featuring cardboard cutouts of Marlon Brando and Marilyn Monroe is included in one of these works designed by Peter Blake. One of these works contains the instruction, peel slowly and...
Album cover.
Album cover is correct for 10 points. Your bonus. Description acceptable. A god's huge appetite and fierce eyes while performing this action are explained away as the result of eagerness for a wedding. 10 points each. Name this action achieved with the help of the Brising necklace, which Thor takes to get his hammer back from a giant who seeks Freya's hand in marriage.
This action
Like,
being
cross-dressing?
disguised as a woman?
Cross-dressing.
Yeah, cross.
Either one of those, any of those is good. This frost giant ransoms Mjolnir in exchange for Freya's hand in marriage. This giant is killed by Thor immediately after he gets his hammer back.
Oh, groom or grin? It's something like that.
Answer?
Thrym?
Nice.
From the Thrymskvida. This Norse god of mischief convinces Thor to dress as a woman to get Mjolnir back.
Loki.
30 points. Toss-up 5. A canonical example of an integrating factor is the calculation of an exact differential of this quantity using the reciprocal of temperature. This quantity is the thermodynamic potential of the microcanonical ensemble. The ratio between changes in specific forms of this quantity and volume gives the slope of coexistence curves in the Clapeyron equation.
Pressure?
Is not correct. The Clausius theorem gives that an integral of a change in this quantity expressed as negative delta Q over T must be greater than or equal to 0. A law of this quantity implies that Carnot engines cannot be perfectly efficient and establishes an arrow of time. For 10 points, the second law of thermodynamics holds that what quantity always increases in the unit.
Oh, sorry, entropy.
Yes.
Yes, understand.
Your bonus, the magua, a men's jacket used in this activity, became a standard dress worn during the Qing Dynasty. 10 points each. Name this activity that was unusually taught to Manchu noble women. In the Song Dynasty, a road to Tibet to trade tea for supplies necessary for this activity was established.
Making silk.
Horse riding?
Horse riding. Horse riding.
Nice.
Horse riding is correct. Unlike Han women, the Manchus did not subject women to this painful practice. Because they did not undergo this practice, Manchu women could wear wooden-soled boots while horse riding.
Foot binding.
Foot binding is correct. This woman popularized the use of liang bateau headpieces to distinguish Manchu women from Han Chinese. This mother of the Tongji Emperor was the main power behind the throne during the late Qing Dynasty.
Shishi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Empress Shishi.
Cixi is correct. 30 points. Toss-up 6. So-called funeral runners traveled around this state hoping to feast on a raisin-filled funeral pie baked during a red-up. The protagonist of Maniac McGee enjoys the butterscotch crimpets made by Tasty Cake in this state. William Woys Weaver's book on the food lore and fake lore of this state is titled For the Shoofly Pie. In this state, cross-street rivals Pat's and Geno's...
Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Nice.
10 points.
That's cheesesteaks, yeah.
It is indeed cheesesteaks.
No, I didn't. How did you know?
Here's your bonus. According to Alfred Wolff, this woman exhibited alongside 5 or 6 lunatics at the first Impressionist exhibition. 10 points each. Name this Impressionist who rests her arm on a railing in Edouard Manet's painting The Balcony. This artist also painted The Cradle and On the Terrace.
Wait, is Morse? Yeah, Morse.
Morisot is correct. This American Impressionist painted scenes of motherhood similar to Morisot's, including in her painting The Child's Bath.
Cassatt.
Cassatt is correct. Impressionists, including Morisot and Cassatt, were greatly influenced by the art of this country, which led to a phenomenon known by a French term ending with the suffix isme. Paintings from this... Yeah.
Yeah.
Timeout.
30
Japanese?
points.
Yeah.
Yes. Timeout is called. The current score going into toss-up 7 is Hunter 230, Detroit Country Day 0.
There's nothing we can get. I have no idea.
30. Good luck. Everyone, you good? Cool. Toss up. Adrian Schoolcraft revealed that this organization manipulated data from a program that originated as Jack Maple's Charts of the Future. A whistleblower within this organization who testified to the Knapp Commission was named Frank Serpico. This organization was the first to use the computer program CompStat. In the 1990s, this organization faced protests over its treatment of Guinean immigrant Amadou Diallo. A civilian complaint review board was established by Mayor David Dinkins to oversee this organization.
The NYPD.
The NYPD.
Nice.
10 points. And your bonus. One of these people called Mamadou Kouyaté was the source of the standard version of a poem which depicts one of these people called Bala Faseke. 10 points each. Name these West African bards who preserve poems such as the Epic of Sundiata.
Griots.
Grios? What? Grios?
Griots is correct. The way griots recite poems in order to pass down stories, pass stories down the generations, exemplifies this type of tradition contrasted with a written tradition. Oral is correct. Oral traditions likely informed the version of this Ethiopian national epic written in Ge'ez in the 13th century. This epic describes the provenance of the Ark of the Covenant.
Maybe the Book of Kings?
Sure.
The Book of Kings?
The Kebra-Nagast, or the Glory of the Kings.
Oh. Okay.
20 points. Here's toss-up 8. In the net formula of the catch cycle, two moles of this molecule react in vitro to form a mole of glyoxylate. This molecule is stored at extremely high concentrations inside chlamydomonas, pyrenoids, and cyanobacterial microcompartments. This molecule slowly adds to the 5-carbon acid RuBP and splits it into 2 molecules of 3-phosphoglycerate. This molecule reacts with...
Rubisco?
Is not correct. With PEP to form oxaloacetate in mesophyll cells, then is released from C4 acids inside bundle sheath cells. In genus Crassulaceae, stomata uptake this molecule at night until enough ATP accumulates to use it in the stroma during the day. Rubisco fixes this molecule in the Calvin cycle. For 10 points, chloroplasts consume water and what gas to make sugars during photosynthesis?
Oxygen.
Carbon dioxide. Here is toss-up 9. This poet suggested waiting for 9 years before publishing one's work in a poem that notes that a word once sent abroad can never return. This poet complained about weighty openings that have purple patches tacked on in a poem written in hexameters that notes that, as painting, so is poetry. The first of 4 books of a collection by this poet notes, now is the time for drinking.
Horace.
Horace is correct for 20.
Nice.
Good buzz.
I'm sorry, dude.
Your bonus, answer the following about the year 536 CE, which may possibly be the worst year in human history, for 10 points each. A likely cause of the year's incredibly long winter was one of these events. Another of these events, originating from Tambora in Indonesia, caused the year without a summer.
Volcanic eruption.
Is correct. One candidate for the volcano that caused the winter is this modern-day country's Ilopango volcano. Archbishop Oscar Romero was murdered in this country in 1980.
Philippines.
Wait, no.
This is El Salvador.
Oh, sorry.
The winter likely contributed to the collapse of this empire, which had been repeatedly invaded by the White Huns. This Indian empire oversaw a golden age of Sanskrit literature.
The Gupta?
Yeah.
Gupta.
Gupta is correct for 20.
Okay. It's fine.
Toss-up 10. Sutherland and Tuziari's biography reveals how the subject of this painting crossed the Atlantic 11 times and regularly made lunches for visitors to a Chelsea studio. A 1934 holiday stamp version of this painting added a vase of flowers but removed a print of the...
Whistler's mother?
That's correct for 20 points.
Nice.
Good buzz.
Your bonus, in a story by this author, Philippa tells the title character, how you will enchant the angels after she prepares a meal. 10 points each. Name this author of Babette's Feast, who also wrote about her time on a Kenyan farm in a 1937 memoir.
Denison.
Yeah.
Denison.
Denison's correct. In Babette's Feast, Philippa and her sister are surprised that Babette intends to continue living with her, despite this event a few weeks earlier, which only occurs thanks to an annual action of Babette's old Parisian friend.
This is
Babette getting married.
sure.
A marriage.
She wins the lottery.
Oh, right.
Denison's other short fiction includes a set of 7 tales, titled in English for this genre, which is characterized by spooky old castles, supernatural figures, and horror-laden deaths.
Gothic.
Gothic is correct for 20. That is the half. I have a score of Hunter A 340, DCD 0. go. Cool. We will resume with toss-up 11. Good luck, both teams. In one story, this figure's son, Latirces, made travelers reap corn, then beheaded them with a scythe. This figure's father, Gordius, was made king after bringing this figure into town on a wagon. After disagreeing with Tmolus, this figure started wearing a turban.
Midas.
Midas is correct for 20.
Nice.
Your bonus, this film movement arguably came to an end after a censorship law was passed by Giulio Andreotti, who felt that these films were dirty laundry that shouldn't be washed and hung to dry in the open. 10 points each. Name this Italian film movement that includes Vittorio De Sica's Umberto D and Bicycle Thieves.
What's it called?
Any ideas?
No.
Futurism?
And
Realism.
I can prompt.
Italians.
Realismo Italiano.
Neorealism.
Ah.
Neorealist classic Rome Open City won the Palme d'Or at the 1946 iteration of this French film festival.
Cannes.
Khan is correct. Italian neorealism influenced this future Indian director of the Ravi Shankar scored Apu trilogy, which includes Pater Panchali and Aparajito.
No clue.
That's something. Sure.
That's probably right.
Answer?
It's probably.
No answer.
Ray, Satyajit Ray. 10 on the bonus, here's toss of 12. These structures are built by a machine steered by gripper shoes attached to thrust cylinders. That machine is the gripper TBM. Peter W. Barlow patented a shield used in conjunction with compressed air to protect new portions of these structures, which must be reinforced within their stand-up times. A method for venting noxious gases from these structures was developed by Clifford Milburn Holland, who oversaw the construction of many of them in New York City.
Bridges?
No. The cut and cover method for building these structures begins with digging trenches. Modular construction of these structures can be performed with immersed tubes. The Boring Company produces, for 10 points, what cylindrical underground passageways that can house subway systems?
Tunnel.
Tunnels. 10 points.
Went up instead of down.
Holland Tunnel namesake.
I mean, a bridge is basically
Theoretically.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Produces PR statements.
Let them in on New York.
Here is your bonus,
I
DCD.
got the
A
NYGD.
holiday celebrating these things is supported by Leviticus chapter 19, verse 23, which specifies a 3-year wait period before taking from these things. 10 points each. Name these things, which are celebrated during the holiday of Tu B'Shvat. In Islam, one of these things is called Tuba, is located in Jannah.
What? Isn't
That's
Jannah
heaven,
like,
heaven.
No, what's hell? So maybe like a
gate.
A gate.
A gate.
A tree. In this tradition, 10 or 11 nodes appear on the Etz Chaim, a diagram that translates as Tree of Life and connects Sephirot. Ein Sof is studied in this branch of Jewish mysticism.
Kabbalah.
Kabbalah is correct. This animal tempts Eve to eat fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God subsequently curses this animal to crawl on its belly.
Snake.
Snake is correct for 20.
So many snake questions in this.
Toss up 13. A character in this novel resents his mother for only caring about her cat and frames the protagonist for killing it. This novel's protagonist is beaten by her mother for dropping a blueberry cobbler on the floor. In this novel, the prostitutes Maginot Line, China, and Poland live above the protagonist's apartment. The protagonist of this novel envies the actress Shirley Temple and is assaulted.
I know why the cage bird sings.
Nope.
Sorry.
And is assaulted by her alcoholic father, Charlie. In this novel, the death of the protagonist's unborn child is foreshadowed when marigold seeds purchased by Claudia and Frida fail to blossom. For 10 points, Piccola Breedlove desires the title feature, which symbolizes white beauty in which novel by Toni Morrison?
The bluest eye.
Is correct. Your bonus. Nick Holonyak's 1962 invention of the laser type of these devices preceded the invention of their light-emitting type. 10 points each. Name these electrical components that conduct in only one direction.
Diode.
Diode is correct. Another early diode was the Fleming valve, which allows the current to flow only via this phenomenon upon heating of the cathode, which is separated from the anode by a vacuum. This phenomenon was rediscovered by Thomas Edison as a reason for uneven blackening of light bulbs.
Thermodynamic emission, maybe? Sure. Thermodynamic emission?
Is correct. Fleming valves were commonly used as this type of device that converts alternating current into direct current. These devices have the opposite function of inverters.
Rectifiers?
30 points.
Solid.
Excuse me, toss up 14. In 1494, Giovanni Pico della Mirandola wrote a polemic against this discipline's judicial branch. Abu Mashar collected thousands of charts in this discipline he called flowers and paired with medicinal herbs. A 1930 Sunday Express article about Princess Margaret was the first of many popular newspaper articles on this discipline criticized for leveraging the Barnum effect. The dragon's head and the dragon's tail...
Like, fortune telling?
I can prompt you.
Like matchmaking?
No. are two lunar nodes important in this discipline. One common practice in this discipline is creating a natal chart that considers aspects, a term for the planet's angles to each other. For 10 points, name this pseudoscientific discipline concerned with horoscopes and zodiac signs.
Astrology.
Astrology.
Co-star toss-up.
Here is your bonus. An ecstatic lecture begins by noting whether or not you perform this action, you'll regret it. 10 points each. Name this action whose aesthetic validity Judge Wilhelm defends in a book by Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. Many of Kierkegaard's books address his sudden decision to not engage in this practice in 1841.
Becoming a priest.
Sure.
Becoming a priest.
Marriage.
Oh, okay.
Judge Wilhelm defends marriage in this first Kierkegaard book, whose title refers to the choice between the aesthetic and ethical realms.
Either or. Yeah.
Either or.
Mm-hmm. In Fear and Trembling, Kierkegaard elliptically compares his decision not to marry Regine Olsen to a leap of this concept. Atheists sometimes define this concept as belief without evidence.
Faith.
20 points. Toss-up 15. These words' property of clusivity allows many Asian languages to distinguish between inclusive and exclusive types of them. A 2020 book by Dennis Barron titled for these words describes how a now common usage of them was frequently employed by
Like pronouns?
20 points.
Goodbye. Wait, was that just about the singular they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
What was that from?
Shakespeare.
It's Barrett's book about the singular they in Shakespeare. Your bonus, in colloid physics, this term refers to the repulsion between particles to prevent agglomeration. 10 points each. The attractive van der Waals forces between nonpolar molecules are usually named for Fritz London and what physical process?
Dispersion.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Just as electrostatics prevent colloids from glooping together, this principle opposes molecular dispersion forces. In other words, this principle explains why fermionic matter does not just collapse into a condensate.
What? Poly-exclusion?
Is correct.
Okay.
Whereas the colloidal dispersion force scales with the average particle radius, the London dispersion force scales with the average of this molecular property. When expressed in electron volts, the Rydberg constant equals this quantity for a hydrogen atom.
First ionization energy. Nice.
Exactly correct. You get 30 points.
Nice.
Toss-up 16. Star and star and trident motifs are often found in the pillar crypts of this civilization, whose other cult furniture include horns of consecration. Luigi Pernier discovered an object on which these people stamped hieroglyphics in a spiral pattern. The marine style was used for some of...
No.
Yeah, 20 points. Good buzz. Your bonus, Anthemius of Tralles reportedly pranked his neighbor Zeno by shooting this substance through leather tubes in his parlor to create mini earthquakes. 10 points each. Name the substance that powered Hero's engine, also called the eolipile, much like the engines developed a millennium later to launch the Industrial Revolution.
Steam.
Steam is correct. This Roman engineer described the eolipile in a treatise where he also lists utilitas, firmitas, and venustas as important attributes of the titled discipline.
Probably Vitruvius.
Is correct. Vitruvius also described these siege weapons, which used two thick cords to provide the tension needed to shoot a javelin. Repeating examples of these weapons were called polybolos.
It should be ballista.
Ballista is correct for 30. Toss-up 7. Clay with a high concentration of this mineral is more susceptible to dunting when firing a kiln because it changes from its alpha to its beta form at 573 degrees Celsius. To save cost, PZT is sometimes used to replace this mineral in a system developed by George W. Pierce. Excuse me. This mineral is the most resistant to weathering on the Golditch dissolution series.
Quartz.
Quartz is correct for 10. Excuse me. Your bonus, Earl Young pioneered this pattern, which appears in songs like Another One Bites the Dust. 10 points each. Name this rhythmic pattern commonly used in electronic dance music. In this pattern, the bass drum is hit on every beat in 4/4 time.
What? Like,
Excuse me.
sure. Definitely ostinato. Maybe like
Answer?
bass line.
It's called 4 on the Floor. This genre of dance music popularized the 4 on the Floor pattern in songs like the Bee Gees' Stayin' Alive. This genre, which was targeted in a 1979 Demolition Night, was portrayed in the movie Saturday Night Fever.
No, it's disco.
Disco's correct.
Right, yeah.
This genre of dance music, which evolved from disco at a namesake underground club in Chicago, uses electronic drum machines to play a 4 on the Floor pattern. This genre broke into the mainstream through Madonna's single Vogue.
I like Vogue. It's a good song. Is it House? I don't know.
Maybe.
House?
20 points.
Good job.
Toss-up 18. A music genre featuring this many players was established by 24 pieces written by Anton Reicha. Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik was originally written for an ensemble of this many instruments. A piece for this many instruments invokes a group of blind beggars by instructing players to strum their instruments like guitars. Luigi Boccherini's Night Music of...
5.
Yes. 10 points. Apparently Reicha popularized the woodwind quintet.
That is not
Your
what I
bonus, the first Feigenbaum constant is the limiting ratio of bifurcation intervals between events in which this quantity doubles. For 10 points each, name this quantity that is doubled by chaos-inducing events that are marked by the splitting of paths on a bifurcation diagram as the bifurcation parameter increases.
What do they want? Like a diffraction pattern?
Let's call it maybe Hausdorff
Answer?
Differ?
Hausdorff dimension.
Period doubling
that makes
bifurcations.
sense.
A system that reaches chaos via period doubling is described by this map that sets x sub n plus 1 to the product of r, x sub n, and 1 minus x sub n. This map shares its name with a function whose graph is the canonical example of a sigmoid curve.
What is even is a sigmoid curve? This graph. Kiss the crone.
It's a logistic map. The logistic map is quadratic and thus lacks this property possessed by functions of the form y equals mx.
Linear.
10 points. Toss up 19. This poet punned on the word salt mother in a poem that describes a creature as daughter of fire, spirit of fire. Acclaimed to have slept the dreams of the title object that never dreams, and the brief line Madrid 1937 appear in a poem by this author of Salamander. This poet's translator, Elliot Weinberg.
Octavio Paz.
Yeah, 20 points. Octavio Paz. Your bonus, answer the following about staged dinner parties for 10 points each. This man's dinner party is ruined by the ghost of Banquo. This man and his wife host that dinner party to begin his reign after they murder Duncan.
Yeah, Macbeth.
Macbeth is correct. This author wrote about Marlene hosting a dinner party for famous historical women like Pope Joan, Isabella Bird, and Lady Nijo in the play Top Girls. The second act of this author's play, Cloud 9, flashes forward from colonial Africa to 1979 London.
Cloud 9. That's not a play, right? Smith.
Carol Churchill. The Condamines host a dinner party which ends with the medium Madame Arcady summoning the ghost of Elvira in Blithe Spirit, a play by this author. This author also wrote Hay Fever and Private Lives.
Noel Coward.
Noel Coward is correct for 20. And the last toss-up. In 1632, a man in this city known as Hezarfen attempted to fly 2 miles from the top of a watchtower with makeshift wings. Serbian exiles forced to resettle in this city inspired the name of the nearby Belgrade forest. Mary Wortley Montagu wrote letters
Istanbul?
20 points for Istanbul. Your bonus, the 2021 book Send a Runner documents Edison Esquite's attempt to commemorate the route of this event over just 16 days. 10 points each. Give this name for a series of forced relocations of the Navajo from present-day Arizona to an internment camp along the Pecos River in New Mexico.
Is it called a long walk or the long march?
Long march is Chinese.
I know, but long walk?
Long Walk is correct. 15,000 people died during this earlier forced relocation of Native Americans following the 1830 Indian Removal Act.
Trail of Tears.
Is correct. It's not Alaska, but the Nome Cult Trail in this modern-day state was used during the 1863 Concow Trail of Tears. This state's so-called apostle, Junipero Serra, adopted harsh policies toward natives.
California.
California for 30. That is the game. We have a final score of 490 for Hunter, 220 for Detroit Country Day. I considered it. round 14 with toss of 1. Good luck, both teams. Participants in these events invoked a god who lives near the Big Dipper and would send his mute attendant Redcoat to aid them. Missionaries stood near these events, handing out tracts like Good Words to Admonish the Age, which Edwin Stevens fatefully gave to a failed participant in 1836. People trying to become jinshe in these events sometimes wore special socks and vests to the complexes of open-faced cells where they took place. Lack of success in these events led
Like civil service exams.
Yes. 10 points.
Good job.
Here is your bonus. Answer the following about black seamstresses in American literature for 10 points each. This author examined a quilt as an example of unrecognized black art in her essay collection In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. She also wrote The Color Purple. Walker's correct. The seamstress Elizabeth Hobbs Keckley wrote a slave narrative that ends with her working for this family. A bronzed, lank man from this family walks at midnight in a poem by Vachel Lindsay.
Wait, no, it's Lincoln.
It is Lincoln. The seamstress Esther is scammed by George in this author's play Intimate Apparel. This author of Sweat depicted Congolese women escaping civil war in her 2009 play Ruined. Nottage is correct for 30. Toss up 2,
Clear. Thank you.
Toss up 2, a molecular gas is classical if this quantity is much less than the cube root of inverse particle density. Entropy minus 5/2 is proportional to the negative logarithm of this quantity cubed times n over v in the Sacher-Tetrode equation. This quantity was measured for electrons in an experiment to study Rutherford scattering off of nickel that inadvertently produced a Bragg pattern. This quantity equals Planck's constant over linear momentum.
Wavelength.
Is correct. For 10 points. Your bonus, this country attempted to establish an African protectorate by signing the 1889 Treaty of Wuchale. 10 points each. Name this country, which was routed by forces personally led by Empress Taitu Betul and Emperor Menelik II at the 1896 Battle of Ottawa.
No, it is Ethiopia. Menelik II, routed by... It's Ethiopia.
It's Africa.
Ethiopia.
Italy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Italy was forced to recognize the sovereignty of Ethiopia in a treaty named for this city, which Taitu Betul had founded and given a name meaning new flower. This city is still the capital of Ethiopia today.
Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa.
Addis Ababa is correct, yes. Menelik II was raised by the second Ethiopian emperor with this name, who resisted English colonial efforts at the Battle of Magdala. The current pope of the Coptic Church has this name.
That's so annoying.
Tewodros is correct for 20.
I just could swear they sent...
Toss up 3. Johnson and Freeborg's 2015 meta-analysis of the most popular form of this process claimed that its success rates had fallen since widespread introduction in the 1970s. Marsha Linehan introduced this process's dialectical type. The most popular form of this process intended to combat distortions arising from his name.
Therapy.
Therapy is correct for 20. Excuse me. Your bonus, newly invented gas lights helped this composer achieve dramatic lighting effects never before seen in an opera that premiered at the Semperoper in Dresden, in 1843. 10 points each. Name this German composer of Das Rheingold and Die Walküre, operas from his Ring cycle.
Wagner.
Wagner is correct. Wagner's theater in this city incorporated cutting-edge technology such as 2 hidden steam engines to provide a steam curtain for scenes in Das Rheingold. An annual festival of Wagner's operas is held in this city.
I'm going to mispronounce it. Bayreuth.
Yeah, Bayreuth is how it's pronounced, but you're good. Wagner wrote this piece as a birthday gift to his wife Cosima. This piece is named for their son, who later served as artistic director for the Bayreuth Festival starting in 1908.
Oh, this was in Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I forget the name.
Oh my god. No.
It's in what?
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Answer?
Okay.
No.
Siegfried Idol. 20 on the bonus.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
20.
Bless you. Toss up 4. Triple-tonguing the articulates tot, ta, and dot were developed by this genre's trumpet players who typically play in thirds and sixths. This genre evolved from workers performing sons in alternating 6/8 and 3/4 for plantation employment. A song in this genre has a removed upbeat to represent an animal walking with a missing leg. A harabe in this genre is...
Like, what? Mariachi.
20 points.
Oh, La Cucaracha.
That is correct. Your bonus, this character is said to be able to perfectly perceive the stormy mane of a pony in the same way most people perceive a circle drawn on a blackboard. For 10 points each, name this paralyzed young man who develops extraordinary powers of perception and memory after being bucked from a horse.
Oh, what? Is it AQ? No, it's not. So I just
Answer?
AQ.
This is Funes the Memorious. Funes the Memorious was included in this Argentine authors collection Labyrinths, in which it follows the Library of Babel.
Borges.
Borges is correct. Other Borges characters with exceptional powers of perception include this story's protagonist, Carlos Daneri, who can see everything from every angle of the universe from a point on the staircase down to his cellar.
The Aleph.
Is correct for 20.
Greedy guy.
Toss-up 5. A school of thought from this modern-day country may have influenced Pyrrhonian skepticism via the time Pyrrho spent among the gymnosophists. A thinker from this modern-day country developed an early non-bivalent logic based on the method of fourfold negation. That thinker from this country promoted a middle way based on contemplation of emptiness. A great saying from this modern-day country, usually rendered in English as "thou art that."
India.
India is correct for 10.
It's just India.
Asi.
Third way is just.
Your bonus: much of the world's blue carbon is reserved within these organisms, which nucleate important marine ecosystems home to rockfish and sea otters. 10 points each. Name these massive brown algae that form underwater forests.
Kelp. Yeah, kelp. Kelp.
Kelp is correct. Since 2011, Floridians have bemoaned the deluge of dead kelp belonging to this genus washing up on beaches. This genus also lends its name to an ecologically important region of the Atlantic Ocean where the kelp accumulates. Name either.
Excuse me? Do you know any regions of the Atlantic?
I have no idea.
Ecologically?
Bermuda.
Sure.
Answer.
Bermuda.
This is Sargassum, or the Sargasso Sea.
That makes sense.
Zoologists believe the Sargasso Sea is the site of this mysterious process, which has astoundingly never been observed outside captivity. It is the last phase in the life cycle of a catadromous animal.
It's like hibernation, maybe. Migration, maybe? I don't know.
Answer.
Migration.
This is eel reproduction.
Oh, wow.
10 points on the bonus.
Yeah.
Toss-up 6. The preface to this play notes that its confrontation is largely metaphysical and that it should not be seen as a clash of cultures. In this play, a joke about holy water offends the servant Joseph, who is confused by changing drum music. In this play, a character disowns his father by calling him an eater.
Shoot. Death and the King's Horseman.
20 points.
Nice. You were saying that was one of the.
Your bonus: the book Mind, Self, and Society pioneered a sociological field that focuses on the interaction between these things shared by humans. For 10 points each, name these things. Charles Sanders Peirce argued that these things require culturally specific interpretation in semiotics.
Words?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. More. Words.
Symbols.
Oh.
This sociologist speculated that humans possess two components of the self called the I and the me that are variously presented to others in his book Mind, Self, and Society. This colleague of John Dewey called human-specific gestures significant symbols.
I can try this, sir.
That's a person.
This is sir.
It's George Herbert Mead. Mead analogized humans to members of this profession to inspect how they interact with the world. Irving Goffman compared people's interactions to members of this profession in his theory of dramaturgy.
Yeah. Actors.
Actors is correct for 10. Toss up 7. Elizabeth Barton, the so-called Nun of Kent, made a series of prophecies favorable to this monarch. A slave and royal bedmaker to this monarch, named Catalina, had unique insight into whether this...
What do you like, Catherine of Aragon?
Catherine of Aragon's correct for 20 points.
Bro, he's so good at
That's good.
Your bonus: answer the following about occasions when the New Testament quotes from pagan authors and philosophers for 10 points each. In one of his letters to the church in this city, Paul quotes the play Thais by Menander to argue that faith is futile without the historicity of Jesus' resurrection. Paul also wrote extensively about love in the 13th chapter of the same letter to this city. Corinth is correct. In Acts chapter 17, Paul quotes the line, "For we too are his offspring," from the poem Phenomena by Aratus, while addressing the Areopagus in this Greek city. The Parthenon was a temple in this city.
Athens. Dude, they said the part. Okay, Athens.
Yes.
Here? What?
This third pastoral epistle quotes a paradox by the philosopher Epimenides, in which he, a Cretan, claims that all Cretans are liars.
Epistle to
Galatians.
Sure.
Ephesians.
just Galatians.
Answer?
Galatians.
Titus, the epistle to Titus.
That's not a real one.
20 on the bonus. Toss up 8. An aqueous solution of this compound is the simplest reagent used to hydrate alkenes, albeit with carbocation rearrangements. Nitric acid must be protonated by this compound before it nitrates benzene. The 18-molar, 36-normal pure anhydrous form of this compound has a Hammett function of -12. This compound is made industrially by oxidizing a dioxide to a trioxide using vanadium.
Sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid.
Yes, 20 points. Sulfuric acid is correct. Here is your bonus. Answer the following about Bowery Boys leader Isaiah Rinders for 10 points each. Rinders' boys helped this Democrat narrowly win New York in a presidential election. This president established an independent treasury and signed the 1846 Walker Tariff into law.
Walker, I think it's Polk.
Polk is correct. Rinders rallied men to vote for Polk and this modern-day state. Santa Anna's forces ended a notorious siege in this state on March 6, 1836. Texas is correct. Rinders was awarded a cushy job in this institution, which by 1853 collected 2/3 of all revenue raised by the U.S. government through tariffs. Chester A. Arthur was kicked out of supervising this New York institution by President Hayes.
What?
The mint stock exchange.
The stock exchange.
The Customs House. U.S. Customs House. 20 on the bonus. Here's toss-up 9. On Christmas in 1950, 4 Scottish students stole one of these objects and hid it in Arbroath Abbey after it broke in half.
A rock?
I can prompt.
Like, I don't know, like a Scottish rock?
No prompt again.
The Scottish rock used for for the monarch's coronation.
I can prompt again.
The I don't know.
Wish I could tell you. All right, that's done. That's done.
Oh, don't worry.
The Sarsen variety of these objects are found at Avebury, as well as a heel example located on an avenue in Wiltshire. One of these things was moved from Edinburgh Castle back to Westminster Abbey for King Charles's coronation, and is named for originally being kept at Scone Abbey. In a castle in Cork, visitors dangle by their ankles and bend backwards to kiss one of these objects, said to bestow the gift of the gab. In Britain, body weight is measured in an imperial unit named for these objects, equal to 14 pounds. Blarney Castle is home to one of, for 10 points, what objects that stand on the Salisbury Plain?
Stone.
That is the word I needed you to say.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's the stone.
You can prompt on rocks or boulders or slabs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 points for Colin. Here is your bonus. Berkeley chemist Glenn Seaborg proposed this element's symbol as a joke because it smells so bad. For 10 points each, name this element that Seaborg isolated from uranium in 1941. It was later used in a nuclear bomb.
Plutonium.
Yeah. Plutonium.
Plutonium.
Yes, PU. Warning, if you got close enough to PU-239 to smell it, you'd be at serious risk of radiation poisoning since it alpha decays into this fissile isotope, the main target of uranium enrichment.
So 235.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
go.
think it is.
Uranium 235.
That's right.
Good.
This longtime Berkeley colleague of Seaborg built a uranium enrichment device out of a particle accelerator and called it a calutron to honor the school. This scientist founded a laboratory that sits on the hill overlooking Berkeley.
It's a lab.
Bell.
Maybe.
I don't know. This is like notable.
Let's try it.
Answer.
Bell.
Ernest Lawrence.
Okay.
Lawrence Berkeley
What the
National
heck?
Lab. 20 on the bonus.
It's alright.
Here's toss-up 10. In one work, a woman claims that this name has a music of its own and produces vibration.
Ernest.
That's a good buzz.
Nice.
We just read that. in English.
Oh.
That is 20 points, as I'm sure you can imagine. Your bonus, a cut time piece in this genre, begins with the tempo marking spiritoso over the notes quarter note C, eighth notes E, C, down to quarter note G in the right hand. For 10 points each, name this genre. That piece in this genre was parodied in a different piece titled This Genre, Bureaucratique.
Sure.
That's not
piano concerto.
It is a sonatina.
Okay.
Clementi's Sonatina Opus 36 No. 1 was parodied by this composer's Sonatine Bureaucratique. This composer wrote a piece with a theme repeated 840 times titled
Satie.
Vexations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Satie.
Satie is correct. Clementina's Sonatina Opus 36 No. 1 is in this major key signature, which has no sharps or flats.
C.
C is correct for 20. That is the half. At halftime, I have a score of Barrington 240, Belmont 110.
Okay, good job.
Not bad.
Closer than I
That's
thought.
not even
I'm
that
gonna be
bad.
honest.
That's not even that bad. I mean, it's not great,
But it's not bad.
it's not bad. That is not bad.
Yeah, no, they're
11. Good luck, both teams. Dome-shaped houses called osi were used by the Cherokee during this general period. Counts named for this general period are important sources of Lakotan history. A famine of this name was alleviated by the arrival of Swedish bread in the Netherlands in 1945.
Winter.
Winter is correct for 20. Your bonus, answer the following about characters from their depiction in Carol Ann Duffy's feminist poetry collection, The World's Wife, for 10 points each. This man's wife declares, I keep his secret still, the clever, cunning, callous bastard didn't have a soul to sell. In Goethe's play about this man, he makes a deal with Mephistopheles. Faust is correct. After he loses interest in her, this character's wife sawed and pulled and hacked, I wanted silence back. An 1831 novel ends with this character's skeleton discovered gripping that of a woman who was hung by an archdeacon.
Quasimodo, yeah.
Quasimodo is correct. The first poem of the collection describes how this sweet 16, never been babe took an axe to a willow to see how it wept before cutting a character open. An Anne Sexton poem in Transformations, named for this character, describes an animal's body filled with stones.
Red Riding Hood.
30 points, well done.
Okay, yep, easy.
Plus of 12, either aptamers or these proteins are the heat-sensitive components of hot start PCR master mix. These proteins are conjugated to nanoparticles and are dried onto the test line in most lateral flow assays. To indicate where they were raised, these proteins' names may start alpha goat or alpha sheep. A primary one of these proteins used for capture is sandwiched with a secondary one used for detection in an ELISA or a
Antibodies.
Antibodies is correct.
The last bonus was 20.
Your bonus, these characters often smear horse manure on themselves because the manure quiets a protein that tells them that they are cold. 10 points each. Name these animals who have a special bone in their paw to help them hold the bamboo they spend most of their days eating in the mountains of China. Panda is correct. Okay. These creatures poop up to 100 times a day, producing distinctive cube-shaped scat. One of these animals, nicknamed Fatso, was an unofficial mascot of the 2000 Summer Olympics. Wombat's correct. An accumulation of bird poop may have contributed to a 2007 bridge collapse in this state that killed 13 people. This state's many loons can be spotted along the Lake of the Woods in its northwest angle.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good job.
30 points.
Rob Carson, Minnesota.
Toss-up 13. After participants in this event crossed a river, a yellow ribbon was tied to their right hands and left legs. Things done, things shown, and things said made up this event's unrepeatables. Participants in this event made dirty jokes in honor of Iambi during a procession along the sacred way. Ergot may have been in the drink of Kaikion consumed in the
Like Eleusinian Mysteries.
Yeah, 20 points.
Good was, wow.
The Eleusinian Mysteries.
So Call of Duty for that.
Here's your bonus. Answer the following about the painter of the Revolution, John Trumbull, for 10 points each. This artist gained his reputation by working as an engraver under Trumbull. A painting by this artist depicts one of his mentors conversing with William Cullen Bryant on a mountainous peak overlooking a waterfall. Durand is correct. Many of Trumbull's paintings decorate the rotunda of this Washington, D.C. building, including his depiction of the Declaration of Independence. This building also includes the apotheosis of Washington and the frieze of American history. Capitol is correct. Many of the most iconic portraits of George Washington were painted by either Trumbull or this other artist, including his Lansdowne portrait and Athenaeum portrait, the latter of which appears on the dollar bill. Gilbert Stuart is correct for 30. Toss-up 14. For a series of photographs taken in the Badlands, one of these objects was controversially moved by Arthur Rothstein. Flowers blossom seemingly from clouds beneath one of these objects in the painting Summer Days. In an attempt to create a so-called Great American Painting, an artist centered one of these objects on a background of red, white, and blue. In the
A skull?
Yeah, 20 points.
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Is a skull. Your bonus, answer the following about uses of the word plume in earth science for 10 points each. Hotspots are often linked to a hypothesized type of plume named for this layer of the earth that lies above the outer core.
Mantle, yeah.
Yeah.
Mantle's correct. Emissions from volcanic plumes can lithify into this type of rock that consists of at least 75% volcanic ash. After flood basalts, the greatest output of volcanoes by volume is the form of this type of rock that results from rhyolitic ash flow.
Maybe we can just try. I'm gonna say
Answer.
igneous.
This is tough.
Tough. Yeah. That's what
River plumes often have high values for this quantity that is inversely related to transparency and can be measured using a Secchi disk. This quantity describes how cloudy suspended particles make a liquid.
Turbidity?
Turbidity is correct for 20.
That's right. Turbid waters.
Toss-up 15. Strict adherents of this faith may use the resin asafoetida to flavor food instead of alliums. In this religion, the universe consists of 3 realms and is represented as a hexagon merged with a triangle. 2 sects of this faith disagree. Jainism is correct for 20. Your bonus, Appius Claudius's abduction of a woman of this class named Virginia led to legal changes that allowed women to make their own wills. 10 points each. Name this commoner social class of Rome that often clashed with the patricians. The Gracchus brothers were some of their elected tribunes.
Plebeians.
Description acceptable. Plebs angry at their treatment following the Sabine Wars staged the first of these actions in 494 BCE. The dictator Quintus Hortensius ended the last of these actions in 287
What are they
BCE.
called? It's like they walked to the sacred mountain.
They did that.
It's fine.
Okay. Good job.
They're going to Montsacre, they're leaving Rome, they're seceding. This man's reforms of 107 BCE allowed the proletariat to enlist in the army. This tribune of the plebs won the Jugurthine War, but his future rival Sulla captured Jugurtha. Marius for 30. Toss up 16. This author's correspondence with a speculated romantic partner is collected in Open Me Carefully. This author, who called letters a joy of earth, included the line, "Show me eternity and I will show you memory," in a letter poem addressed to Susan Gilbert. This author referenced the mysterious correspondent Master in a poem.
Dickinson.
20 points. Here's your bonus. In 1987, a surge in research into these materials culminated in an 8-hour marathon session of lectures dubbed the Woodstock of Physics. 10 points each. Name these materials, a type of which expel magnetic fields upon surpassing their critical temperatures.
I completely zoned out. Yes. Metals.
One more time.
Metals.
These are superconductors.
Oh, I'm dumb.
The excitement surrounding the Woodstock of Physics centered on discoveries of superconductors that operated at relatively high values of this quantity, which can be measured in Kelvin.
Yep, temperature.
Temperature is correct. This earliest discovered family of high-temperature superconductors is named for the 4 elements that its members contain. These materials have a perovskite structure with layers bounded by alternating planes and ribbons.
Lanthanide superconductors. Okay.
Answer?
Lanthanide.
These are YBCOs, yttrium barium copper oxides.
Oh, yeah.
10 on the bonus. Here is toss-up 17. Optimization of one of these structures occurs only every few operations in the Day-Stout-Warren algorithm. A variety of these structures are optimized by performing rotate and flip.
Trees.
20 points.
Nice, he's so good.
Like that.
Yeah.
Your bonus. In one story, this river was created when some characters chopped down a water-filled lupuna tree that Myra or grandfather had been using to bathe. 10 points each. Name this river that is central to many of the myths of the Yagua and Witoto people. A shape-shifting dolphin that lives in this river supposedly kidnaps people at night.
Mikoto. Oh, that. What did you say?
Yogo Congo.
Congo?
It's the Amazon.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
In Yagua myth, the characters who chop down the lupuna tree have this relationship to each other. Hunapu and Xbalanque, the heroes of the Mayan Popol Vuh, have this relationship to each other.
Twins.
Yes. The Amazon water lily was often connected to this concept, the domain of the god Ruda. Tanais was cursed to throw himself into the river Amazonius by a goddess of this domain who was caught under a bronze net.
That's
like
love,
after-
right? Yeah, love.
Love is correct. 20 points.
Oh, cool. Okay. Keep going, though. For like.
Said next.
fun.
Toss of 18. After hearing coughing from down the hall, this novel's protagonist finds a man in a filthy room who asks him to boil water for the spaghetti he is making. In this novel, a trumpeter kills his cats after another character is impaled while trying to make love to the Niobe's figurehead. This novel's protagonist claims to be Jesus while leading a gang of children called the
Tindrum.
Last Word of Power. Your bonus. Kim Kardashian's dermatologist Simon Ulian described celebrities suffering from saggy skin after taking this drug. For 10 points each, name this brand name version of semaglutide that, like Mounjaro, has been widely used to lose weight. Novo Nordisk creates this injectable drug.
Sure.
Ozempic is right. Ozempic was originally developed to lower blood sugar levels in people with the type 2 form of this disease.
Diabetes.
Is correct. Novo Nordisk is based out of this country, where Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen is dealing with riots from Rasmus Paludan's Stram Kurs party burning Korans.
Which? No, it's a
Answer?
Sweden.
Denmark.
Plus.
20 on the bonus. Toss up 19. A photographer born in this country depicted families playing in rivers and fields in a series of 1936 photographs called First Paid Holidays. That photographer from this country depicted a mass of people crowding into a Shanghai bank to buy gold. This country's capital was captured by night by Brassai. A photo...
France.
20.
Paris is the capital. Oh, I was like Paris. Oh, wow.
Your bonus. In the 19th century, Dutch subjects participating in this event would endure Middle Passage-style conditions when sailing from Singapore. 10 points each. Name this event that began to be dominated by European steamship companies in the 19th century. Richard Francis Burton adopted a Pashtun disguise to partake in this event.
Hajj, yeah. Go.
Hodge.
Yes. The British mandated the use of this practice for the Hajj after an 1865 cholera outbreak. This public health measure could last for 15 days for anyone entering the Ottoman Empire at Thessaly.
Yeah, quarantine.
Is correct. This Ottoman Sultan called for Muslims around the world to fund the Hejaz Railway to Mecca. This last Ottoman Sultan to hold real power was deposed in 1909.
Mehmed something.
Mehmed
Mehmed
the
6.
third?
I thought it was 6.
Oh, what?
Go,
That's so
go.
far. Okay, sure.
Mehmed 6.
Abdul Hamid II. 20 on the bonus, one more toss-up. This person unsuccessfully tried to warn Secretary Betty Curry about an impending investigation while going to the bathroom at the Pentagon City Mall. 3 days after testimony was given about this person, the U.S. launched Operation Infinite Reach.
So like Monica Lewinsky.
20 points.
He's so good.
Nice.
Your bonus, this book's second chapter analogizes its title system to our sewage disposal system. 10 points each. Name this 3-volume nonfiction book subtitled An Experiment in Literary Investigation, which discusses the lives of Zeks, which its author also depicted in a novella about Shukov.
So it's Gulag Archipelago. Because the novella.
Okay,
is
yeah,
it
sure.
Gulag Archipelago.
Yes,
Good,
Gulag
thank
Archipelago. This Russian author opposed the Gulag system in the Gulag Archipelago and One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich.
Solzhenitsyn.
Solzhenitsyn is correct. Support for the gulags is analyzed as a form of Ketman in this Czesław Miłosz book, which discusses how intellectuals such as the moralist Alpha and slave of history Gamma submit to Stalinism.
It's correct.
Okay. Say it then.
Answer
The captive mind.
is correct for 30 points. That is the game. I have a final score of 510 for Barrington A, 270 for Belmont. Good game, both teams.
Also, there's cookies.
country who feuded with its national peasant party in the 1930s, sought to protect it with the so-called Maginot Line. Marie, this country's wartime queen, secured generous terms at Versailles and restored its Bronze Castle. Operation Tidal Wave carpet-bombed this country's oil center of Ploiești.
Romania?
Is correct for 20 points.
Nice.
Aaron, your bonus. The Subak irrigation system in Bali was used to produce this crop around water temples. 10 points each. Name the staple crop grown on paddies and hillside terraces throughout Asia. Rice is correct. In this modern-day country, the Ifugao people channeled mountain streams into rice terraces at sites like Banawe. During the Green Revolution, this country's International Rice Research Institute developed the IR8 rice variety.
Ifugao. I'm thinking of link frauding this.
Go with it.
Answer.
Say it.
Brazil.
Philippines. In this other Southeast Asian country, land reform and attempts at self-sufficiency devastated rice output under dictator Ne Win, who headed a junta that was opposed by the 8888 protests.
Myanmar.
Yeah. Myanmar direct.
Is correct for 20.
Let's go.
I thought that was Portugal.
Toss up 2. The aphorism that 1 gram of these objects is equal to a shovelful of coal recurs in a Herta Mueller novel titled in translation For a Type of Angel. In another novel, a character takes one of these objects from Maubert Isabeau to give to the children of his widowed sister, which ultimately leads to him having to carry a yellow passport. The barber Ivan Yakovlevich discovers a body part.
A nose.
No. Discovers a body part inside one of these objects in the opening scene of Nikolai Gogol's story, The Nose. Because of repeated escape attempts, a man who breaks a window to obtain one of these objects ends up spending 19 years in prison in the novel Les Miserables. For 10 points, Jean Valjean initially goes to prison for stealing what food item?
A loaf of bread.
A loaf of bread.
Yeah.
10 points, and your bonus. The protagonist of this novel answers his own question of what do women want with the answer, they eat green salad and drink human blood. For 10 points each, name this novel whose protagonist composes letters to people such as Friedrich Nietzsche and Dwight Eisenhower after his divorce from his second wife, Maddie, who left him for his friend Valentine Gersbach.
It's like Herzog.
Herzog is correct. Saul Bellow, who partly set Herzog in This City, opened his novel The Adventures of Augie March with the line, I am an American, this city born.
Chicago.
Another author declared of this city, they tell me you are wicked, and I believe them.
Chicago.
Is correct. This author called Chicago Hog Butcher for the World in his poem titled after this city.
Sandberg.
Sandberg is correct for 30 points.
Let's go. All right, nice.
Toss up 3. The Nicholas brothers incorporated leapfrogs into this dance style in the final performance in the review Stormy Weather. Savion Glover used this dance style for the choreography of the musical Bring Into Noise, Bring Into Funk. Advanced moves in this dance style include the Maxi Ford. The song I'll Be Hard to Handle in the film Roberta uses this dance style, performed by Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. The Riff Walk and Parrot... Tap dancing.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
10 points. Your bonus, the Ives Stilwell experiment initially used canal rays to measure this effect's transverse form. 10 points each. Name this effect in which the perceived frequency of a wave changes based on its motion relative to a reference frame.
Doppler.
A cause of... Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Champanet and Moon found that there was no Doppler shift between a source and receiver rotating on opposite sides of a rotor named for this effect. In this effect, resonant absorption and emission of gamma rays from bound nuclei is recoil-free.
Quantum Hall effect.
Just say
Hall.
The Moss-Bauer effect.
Okay.
Infinitely narrow emission peaks are non-existent because Doppler broadening affects this probability distribution. This distribution models the velocity of distinguishable gaseous particles.
Boltzmann something.
Maxwell Boltzmann.
Yeah, Maxwell Boltzmann.
Maxwell Boltzmann.
Yes, 20 points.
Come on.
Toss up 4. A powdered microcrystalline form of this polymer is the most common binding excipient used in drug manufacturing. Carbon disulfide solubilizes this polymer and regenerates it into rayon. This
Cellulose.
Cellulose is correct for 20.
Good job. Nice.
That's a good bonus.
On the board. Let's go.
Your bonus, in a folk story, this man's spine became a mountain range, his eyes became the sun and moon, and his limbs became the 4 pillars of the sky. 10 points each. Name this hairy giant born into a cosmic egg who pushed apart the earth and sky over the course of 18,000 years.
Is it from Horace? Can we, like,
Ymir?
Yeah, that's much.
Ymir.
This is Pongu. 2 answers required. Pongu, separating the earth and sky, represents these 2 opposing dualistic principles of light and dark. Taiji is represented by these 2 principles as white and dark halves of a circle.
Yin and Yang.
Yin and Yang is correct. Pongu is held by the crane, the dragon, the phoenix, and this animal. Nuwa used the legs of this animal to mend the pillars supporting heaven after a flood.
Mura is like a snake, the head, and then
Turtle? Ethan saying turtle.
yeah.
Answer?
Dragon.
Defer.
Dragon.
It's a turtle, or tortoise. Toss up 5. While using one of these things, a man is reproached for vanity by the queen of the ants. That object makes 40,000 men die in a windstorm. One of these things is bought with an ivory telescope and a healing apple, while another appears in the City of Brass. According to legend, Shapur I kidnapped the Emperor Valerian with one of these objects. Ivan carries the Firebird on one of these things. Cleopatra supposedly seduced Caesar after emerging...
Like bed sheets.
No.
Wait. Where was it?
After emerging from one of these objects. A purple one of these is laid out for Agamemnon before his murder, and Hussein buys one of these things in India in 1001 Nights. For 10 points, the original Tale of Aladdin doesn't actually feature a flying example of what object? Carpets. Rugs. Here is your bonus. Answer the following with the West's obsession with Chinese porcelain for 10 points each. 2 answers required. Giovanni Bellini's Feast of the Gods depicts several figures holding Ming porcelain of these 2 colors. Cobalt oxide pigments are applied to clay and glazed over to make porcelain with these 2 colors. Blue and white is correct. The first examples of European porcelain were soft-paste imitations named for this family. Michelozzo di Bartolomeo designed a palace for this family, and a pope from this family commissioned the Laurentian Library. During the 17th century, this city originated a prized blue ware. The artist of the Goldfinch, Carl Fabritius, was a member of a school of painting named for this city.
What did it say?
Remember.
Okay, Delft. Nice.
30 points. Toss up 6. Elements of Skorokhod spaces have this property on the right and are Kodlog. The Picard-Lindelof theorem applies when the derivative of a solution to an ODE has this property in T and has a form of this property in Y that is defined in terms of the Lipschitz constant. The Cantor staircase function has this property, but not its uniform type. The epsilon delta
Continuous?
Yes.
Yes.
You get 10 points. And a bonus, a cartoon depicting this dictator as a crying baby brought Moomin's creator Tove Jansson to fame. For 10 points each, name this dictator who inspired the title of Karl Ove Knausgaard's series My Struggle with his own book, Mein Kampf.
Hitler.
That's right. This author controversially wrote a positive obituary for Hitler more than 50 years after he wrote the pioneering short modernist novel, Hunger.
What? Hunger? Hunger. Postmodernist?
Answer?
Different.
That's Knut Hamsun. Around the time she railed against Hitler in her war diaries, Astrid Lindgren wrote the first stories about this extremely strong character who lives in Villa Villacula.
Pippi Longstocking? Pippi Longstocking.
Pippi Longstocking is correct for 20. Toss up 7. In a late letter, this man told his nephew's wife that it beats old age, disease, or falling down the cellar stairs to be shot to rags against a stone wall. This man, alongside William Benton, was the main inspiration for a character who was nicknamed the Indiana General after using his Colt 44 to shoot out the dead center of a silver coin. This man's mysterious 1913 disappearance in Mexico, which Carlos Fuentes' fictional... Bierce is correct, yeah. Alvin, 10 points. And your bonus, political scientist Robert Dahl used the term polyarchy to describe a government run under this theory, which he illustrated using leaders in New Haven. 10 points each to give this political theory name for the multiple interest groups that characterize it. In a government under this theory, non-government groups exert their influence to affect outcomes.
Pluralist?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Pluralism distinguishes a polyarchy from this type of government whose representative form has citizens elect officials to serve them.
Right. Democracy.
Democracy is correct. Dahl called a group's influence the potential form of this resource. Joseph Nye coined a term for the soft form of this resource, defined as a group's ability to shape people's preferences non-violently.
Power direct.
Power is correct for 30.
Nice.
Toss up 8. It's not cities, but a movement named for these places represented urban sprawl as magnets in diagrams created by Ebenezer Howard. Embroidery inspired enclosed examples of these locations called parterre. Recessed walls... Gardens for 20.
Nice. Good. Really good bonus.
Here is your bonus. After killing a tapir, these people among the Awekoma spread chopped greens over its body to protect against the spirits of slain animals called bope. 10 points each. Give this term for indigenous religious leaders who may consume ayahuasca to have visions.
Shamans.
Shamans is correct, yes. Arawak shamans perform a dance with these objects to represent underwater ghosts called kamutsi. A humpbacked trickster deity that delivers children to the Hopi is depicted with one of these objects.
Humpbacked. So like, yeah, like a cane, like a staff?
Sure, cane. It's a cane.
It's a flute. It's kokopelli.
It's kokopelli. That's a flute.
Mondurukua shamans spread this substance over skulls, then suck it away with a bamboo tube to heal spiritual wounds. The Lakota chanupa was used to consume this substance in religious ceremonies such as sealing peace.
Is it pipe? It's tobacco. Tobacco.
20 points.
Nice. Yeah.
Toss-up 9. One of these facilities in Cape Town is the origin of the terminology master and slave still widely used in computing. John Pond, who supervised one of these facilities, introduced the use of the time ball. Tables from John Flamsteed were used at a large one of these facilities in Jaipur built by Jai Singh. A Ming-era one of these facilities in Beijing houses an armillary...
An observatory?
That is correct. Observatory for 20 points.
Good. I forgot what it was called.
A bonus, an esoteric lossy algorithm has this time complexity because it simply drops each element of the input array that is less than its predecessor. For 10 points each, name this time complexity of an algorithm that accesses each element in an input array exactly once. You can give your... Yes. That esoteric algorithm performs this task of ordering the values in an array that is typically performed with time complexity big O of n log n.
Sorting.
Sorting is correct. This non-comparative sorting algorithm can run in near linear time when sorting small integers. This algorithm iteratively puts elements into buckets based on a stable sort of their values in successive digits.
Is it quick sort?
Quick or bubble? I think quick.
Oh no, it's bubble. It's bubble.
For sure.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Bubble.
This one is radix sort.
Okay.
You get 20 points. Drop sort. Toss of 10. The eigenvector of a Leslie matrix is the stable distribution for this discrete variable in a population. Structured population models are classified by either stage or by this variable, which is required to specify a vital birth or death rate. Fisheries measure otoliths to determine a population's distribution of this variable. Mortality rate increases with this quantity on a type 1 survivorship curve and decreases with it on a type 3.
Just age, yeah.
Age is correct
Nice.
for 20.
Nice. Good.
Your bonus, John Murray Gibbon imagined this country as a cultural mosaic in a 1938 book. 10 points each. Name this country that passed a 1988 Multiculturalism Act. A year prior, this country proposed the Meech Lake Accord to persuade a government within it to endorse constitutional amendments added in 1982.
1982. Canada, probably. Canada. Yeah, makes sense.
The earlier Royal Commission on Bilingualism and Biculturalism was established to counter Francophone nationalism in this province, whose premiers include Robert Bourassa.
Quebec, correct.
That's correct. Canadians of this ethnicity, once considered enemy aliens, pushed for the Multiculturalism Act under leaders like Paul Usick. In the 2010s, Canada supported these people against the Little Green Men.
Ukrainians?
Differ?
Ukrainians.
One more time?
Ukrainians.
30 points.
Nice.
Oh. That is the half. I have a score of St. Mark's 230, Winston Churchill 150.
Good job. Let's go. Let's keep this going.
150, yes. Let's. Required. One of these works begins with strings playing one bar each of G down to D, E flat down to F sharp, with basses playing quarter notes on the beat and other strings playing off the beat. One of these works begins with violins playing the twice repeated phrase of pick up eighth notes E flat D, then downbeat D. Yeah, 20 points. Good buzz. A bonus, to fix an enzyme in this pathway, in 1999, Jesse Gelsinger enrolled in a gene therapy clinical trial which had tragic consequences. For 10 points each, name this metabolic cycle that detoxifies ammonia in the liver. Answer? The urea cycle. Gelsinger had a lethal adverse reaction to one of these viruses used to package the new gene. The common cold can be caused by this family of DNA viruses, which have since been used safely in the AstraZeneca and J&J COVID-19 vaccines. These are adenoviruses. The Gelsinger tragedy kiboshed gene therapy for 2 decades until a treatment for this cancer was finally approved in 2017. Like lymphoma, this cancer of the bone marrow overproduces white blood cells. Leukemia is correct for 10.
Let's go. Come on.
Toss of 12. One character with this profession is told in the House of Busrain to be bold, but not too bold, and gives new clothes to the victims of Radegund. Other characters with this job escape the House of Pride and the Bower of Bliss after being tempted by Acrasia and Duessa. In a bob and wheel poem, a character with this profession kisses his host in exchange for a deer, a boar, and a fox. A character with this profession is separated from Una by the evil Archimago. The chaswoman Britomart has this job, as does a Red Cross one of these people. A knight. Yes. 10 points. And your bonus, 20 years after inventing this technology, its company began distributing Shirley cards that calibrated colors for it, leading to notoriously poor results in photos of people with dark skin. For 10 points each, name this brand of color reversal film whose manufacture was discontinued in 2009. I can prompt on Kodak.
Kodak film.
That's the specific Kodachrome is the type of film. Kodak's 104 line of Instamatic cameras included cubes that produced this effect, providing better lighting for indoor photography but prone to causing red eye. Produces a flash. Steve McCurry's Kodachrome photograph of Sharbat Gula called Afghan Girl was used on the cover of this publication. Louis Marsden took photographs for this publication in the mid-1930s. National Geographic. Nothing on the bonus. Here is toss-up 13. E.C. Booze's distinctive whiskey bottles in support of this candidate are the source for the term booze. Supporters of this candidate pushing leather and tin spheres to campaign stops originated the phrase, keep the ball rolling. Good buzz, 20 points.
It's fine.
Your bonus, a woman dwells on the death of her pet bird in the last story this author completed, The Canary. 10 points each. Name this author who, while in the late stages of tuberculosis, wrote The Daughters of the Late Colonel and a story about an event partly organized by Laura Sheridan. Yes. After going to Cornwall to aid her condition, Mansfield published this story in which Bertha Young feels an odd connection to Pearl while hosting a dinner party. Answer? Bliss. While recovering from tuberculosis, Mansfield received a letter reading, "You revolt festering in your consumption. You are a loathsome reptile. I hope you will die." From this author of Women in Love and Lady Chatterley's Lover. Seems harsh. You get 20 points.
Wow. Let's break the streak. Come on.
Toss-up 14. An infinite hierarchy of quantities with this property arises from the Korteweg-de Vries equation because it's fully integrable. In most scenarios, the Poisson bracket of the Hamiltonian with quantities with this property equals 0. Quantities conjugate to cyclic or ignorable coordinates of a Lagrangian have this property. The correspondence of quantities with this property to differentiable symmetries of the action is described by Noether's theorem. By definition,
Like reversible?
No. No. By definition, kinetic energy has this property in elastic collisions. In the absence of external forces, momentum has this property because its time derivative equals 0. For 10 points, name this property of quantities that do not change as a system evolves.
Like conservative.
Yeah, yes. Or constant.
That made me worry for a bit.
Your bonus, this island was named after an Egyptian god of dance, music, and sex, 3 qualities still associated with it. For 10 points each, name this island whose nightclub scene includes the Ciro Loco parties held at its DC-10 nightclub. DJs working on this island helped develop the Balearic beat.
Ibiza?
Yes. This language's Ibicenc dialect is spoken on Ibiza. A mandate to teach more Castilian Spanish compared to this language sparked protests in Barcelona schools in 2019.
Catalan, direct.
Catalan's correct. A ferry connects Ibiza to this city, home to the Albufera Lagoon and the birthplace of the dish of paella. Firecrackers are set off during this city's Fallas festival.
Valencia. Valencia.
30 points.
Protest conservative.
What was that? What did the answer might say in that?
Constant or conserved, except description of quantities that are time invariant, like quantities that do not depend on time, except constants of motion.
Yeah, we protest that,
Sure.
definitely.
Yep.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. All right.
Hopefully it's an easy one to resolve.
Yeah. Can we have a score check, please?
Yes, it is 230-270. I got 30 on that bonus.
Good answer. Conservative should not be accepted.
The very easiest kind of toss-up to resolve, or toss-up protest. Okay, so 40-point swing potentially. Excuse me. Continuing with toss-up 15. In this city, 12 hypocrites refused to pray at a building constructed where a donkey was hitched. This city's constitution was signed by 8 tribes called the Helpers. In this city, 3 coffins and an empty grave were surrounded by a pentagonal wall to discourage circumambulation. Praying at this city's Kuba Mosque yields a reward equivalent to 1 Umrah pilgrimage. The Green Dome marks a burial site at this city's Mosque of the Prophet. After its people welcomed persecuted visitors, Medina's correct for 10. 10, yes. And your bonus, the economist Nathaniel Baum Snow found that this program led to a 17% reduction in the population of major American cities between 1950 and 1990. 10 points each. Name this massive federal project built partly for defense purposes. The Overtown neighborhood of Miami lost much of its population due to this project. Answer? I can prompt. That's what I need, yeah. The first bill for the interstate highway system was signed into law by this president, a former World War II general.
Eisenhower.
Is correct. Another major domestic spending policy of the Eisenhower administration was the National Defense Education Act, passed during the crisis spawned by this 1957 event.
Was it an oil thing?
Answer? That's the launch of Sputnik. 20 points. Toss-up 16, description acceptable. Billy Name covered the entirety of this place with aluminum foil and silver spray paint and found this location's iconic red couch on the side of the street. An artwork was allegedly taken from this place and used as a dartboard by Bob Dylan. People in this location were told not to blink as they were filmed for 3-minute screen tests. Edie Sedgwick and Paul America were some of the superstars who visited this place.
Warhol's factory?
Yes, 10 points. Your bonus, chemistry textbooks routinely assign water a value of 15.74 for this quantity, even though decades of experiments have shown that estimate is too high. 10 points each. Name this molecular property which decreases as a compound becomes more acidic. This quantity and the pH determine the degree of ionization in the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation.
pKa.
Is correct. Water's actual pKa is this 2-digit integer, the typical upper bound of the pH scale. 14 is correct. The confusion stems from incorrectly using water's molarity in the law of mass action, rather than this dimensionless quantity, which is defined to be 1 for all pure solids and liquids. Answer? Activity. 20 on the bonus.
Okay, let's go.
Toss-up 17. It's not North Carolina, but a legislator in this state accused a congressional leader of urinating in the seat of Tom Tillis's brother. That legislator from this state was shoved by Bill Lafferty as Cameron Sexton tried to clear a chamber. In January 2023, 5 black police officers in this state beat Tyre Nichols to death.
Tennessee.
20 points. Your bonus, Thomas Mapfumo, a musician nicknamed the Lion of this country, created its frequently banned genre of music named for revolutionary struggle. For 10 points each, name this African country whose most popular genre of music, Sungura, is often played on its traditional thumb piano, the mbira.
Mira sounds maybe. No, it's Bantu.
Answer?
Defer.
Zimbabwe. This genre of music is by far the most popular one in contemporary Zimbabwe. In the United States, this genre was popularized by singers like Mahalia Jackson and songs like Oh Happy Day. Answer?
Soul.
Gospel. In 1980, this Jamaican reggae musician celebrated Zimbabwe's independence by performing in Harare along with his band, the Wailers.
Morally.
Is correct for 10.
Let's go.
Toss-up 18. Jeffrey K. Pullum criticized this writer's use of concepts created by Emil Post without sufficiently citing them. Daniel Everett challenged the theories of this thinker after researching the Piraha for his PhD thesis. To disagree with B.F. Skinner, this thinker addressed what they called Plato's problem to argue children are subject to a poverty of the stimulus and can't learn every aspect of language from experience. This thinker modeled category formation. No. Kant is not correct. Category formation with X-bar theory. In the book Syntactic Structures, this thinker posed the well-formed but nonsensical sentence, colorless green ideas sleep furiously. For 10 points, the universal grammar theory was developed by what former MIT linguist? Yes, Chomsky is correct. For 10. Your bonus, answer the following about words whose roots are in Greek theater for 10 points each. An offstage crane bringing in divine characters like Helios' chariot and Medea is the root of this three-word plot device in which a supernatural force suddenly resolves a conflict. It translates to God from the machine.
Deus Ex Machina.
Is correct. This man, who Aristotle claimed to be the first actor after he broke from a chorus and introduced dialogue to tragedy, lends his name to a word for actor. Thespis is correct. This word originated to describe actors as interpreters from underneath because of their usage of masks. Tu quoque is an ad hominem logical fallacy, sometimes called an appeal to this word.
Reason.
Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Yeah, 20 on the bonus. With 2 toss-ups left, 350 for St. Mark's, 270 for Winston Churchill A. 40 of Winston Churchill's points are under protest. Ready to keep going? Good. All right. Toss-up 19. Irving Finkel decoded the usage of wooden boards from this city that were decorated with 20 inlaid shell plaques. A pair of gilded statues uncovered in this city that depict a goat resting its hooves on a tree was nicknamed Ram in a Thicket. A wooden sled and lyres with bulls' heads on them were found in the tomb of this city's Queen Puabi. This city conquered Elam under Shulgi, but the Elamites overthrew this city's third dynasty not long after. In 1922, Catherine and Leonard Woolley excavated this city's royal cemetery. Is correct. 10 points. Your bonus, this object creates a loud noise after a man observes that women don't seem to hold together like men after you kill them. 10 points each. Name this object central to a play in which it carries a note to Ben and Gus reading Macaroni Pastizio, or Mitha Macaronata, leading them to place one Smith's Crisps, one Eckley's cake inside it.
Waiter.
Yes. The Dumb Waiter was written by this author of The Caretaker and The Birthday Party. Victor is correct. Description acceptable. In the beginning of The Dumb Waiter, Ben reads Gus newspaper headlines about a man of 87 getting killed in this manner. Answer?
Defenestration.
What is your? Which of those is your answer?
Hit by a car.
I will prompt you.
Hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't their first answer.
I heard the two answers simultaneously.
Yeah, they were given simultaneously.
No. We said it at the same time.
All right, can I have a score check?
350, 310.
Right here.
Come on, let's go get some.
Actually, we could. But I heard both of them directed simultaneously, which is why I asked for clarification.
Yeah.
All right. Last toss-up. This character yells, "I will not give up Berlin," to punctuate his opposition to a future where scientists create a civilization of smooth and blonde men. A story is told about this character being sucker-punched in front of his father-in-law. This character tells a story about a boy with a learner's permit who swerves to avoid a porcupine and...
George.
20 points. Or 10 points. 10 points, sorry. 10 points. 10. I said porcupine. That's 10 points. Your bonus. More soldiers drowned in the rough seas on the way back from a campaign against this city than in capturing a fleet in this city. For 10 points each, name this capital city that was bombarded by the British in 1807. A monarch from the House of Oldenburg was crowned in this city's cathedral in 1449.
Copenhagen.
Is correct. In another Royal Navy campaign from the Napoleonic Wars, Alexander Ball captured this city from Francis Henry Pigot in 1800. During World War II, the entire population of this island was given a George Cross for acting as an unsinkable aircraft carrier against Axis attacks. Malta is correct. The 1814 siege of Ragusa was part of a British naval campaign named for this sea that separates the Balkan Peninsula from most of Italy.
Adriatic.
Adriatic is correct for 30, so that is a tie. Let us submit that protest and check with...
Did we already get the protest for the previous one? Conservative?
Haven't gotten that one back. You wanted to protest that as well? Yeah.
Yeah. Please do.
I will do that. That was in question 14, so I'll just submit them both right now. You ready? Okay. A humanist in this profession commissioned Francesco Grifo to make a new style of objects for use in it. One innovator in this profession received 800 guilders of finance capital from Johann Fust and may not have been...
Banker?
No. Is not correct. And may not have invented the punch matrix system himself. Early innovations in this profession were developed in Venice by Aldus Manutius. The first Englishman in this profession learned it in Bruges and was named William Caxton. In Europe, this profession was essentially invented by a goldsmith in the city of Mainz, who now names an online project of public domain works. For 10 points, name this profession innovated by a man who produced a set of 42-line Bibles, Johannes Gutenberg. Printing is correct for 10. Okay, so Kevin. So the current result is Winston Churchill wins 360-350. If the protest is resolved in your favor, the tiebreaker will be thrown out and you will win the game. If the protest is resolved in your favor, you will stay the winners of the game. Any questions?
How do they communicate?
They'll be letting you know after the next round. They'll contact with you directly. Inspired by this place relates a story about a poet who regrets not catching fish like a dutiful monk because his head is in the clouds all day. A price of $28.12 is listed in a book named for this place. 20 points.
Oh, right.
Walden is correct. Your bonus. In one myth, the mother of these characters gets them to stop arguing by comparing them to a hard-boiled, a scrambled, and an over-easy egg. 10 points each. Name these characters who disappear one at a time in a Mohawk story. Stories about these characters often emphasized how their namesake plants went together.
The Three Sisters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Direct.
Yes. In farming, the three sisters are squash, beans, and this crop. Many religions feature a maiden or a mother of this crop, which Squanto supposedly taught pilgrims how to plant. Maize or corn, yes. In this myth system, the gods created men out of white and yellow corn after failing to make them from clay and wood. Demons in this myth system included 7 macaw.
That's Mayan.
Okay.
Mine's correct for 30. Toss-up 2. Alongside George Price, a thinker with this surname described a resource cost exceeding the fighting cost in setting out the hawk-dove game. That thinker with this surname applied game theory to biology with his concept of evolutionarily stable strategies.
Nash.
No. Nash is not correct. A thinker with this last name proposed a predecessor of Marx's labor theory of value to explain the divergent price of diamonds and water. A thinker with this name discussed the sympathy of an impartial spectator. That author with this last name discussed a pin factory's use of the division of labor in a book that describes an incorporeal entity that guides markets. For 10 points, give this last name of a Scottish thinker who described the invisible hand and the wealth of nations.
Smith.
It is Smith. Sometimes it's just Smith. Your bonus. Solar flares can cause sudden ionospheric disturbances in portions of the ionosphere that are under this condition. For 10 points each, name this condition that increases the density of the ionosphere, causes its F layer to split, and causes its D layer to appear.
Condition, what's like a solar flare or something like that?
Answer?
No, solar flare.
The condition is that it's daytime or is facing the sun.
Oh.
Diurnal fluctuation of the ionosphere must be accounted for when positioning a skip in which reflection off of the bottom of the ionosphere extends the range of the shortwave form of this technology.
Radio.
Radio is correct. The ionosphere is a part of this planetary structure that can also be categorized into layers including the troposphere and the stratosphere. The atmosphere. Yes. 20 points. Toss-up 3. Gel solins degrade hydrogels containing this protein into sols. Listeria forms comet tails of this protein to rocket its way through cells. Microscopists image this protein by tagging it with the death cap mushroom's phalloidin toxin. At intracellular concentrations that can exceed a millimolar, this protein's globular monomer devours ATP to rapidly polymerize. A cocked head...
Actin.
Actin is correct for 20. Your bonus. This artist, who often sang an echo song that imitated a mountain shepherd calling sheep, caught her big break during a Berlin production of Vincenzo Bellini's Norma. 10 points each. Name this Swedish singer who nearly caused riots in several stops on her extremely popular tour of the U.S. in the early 1850s, sponsored by P.T. Barnum. Answer?
Lind?
Yes. It's not robes, riding hats, or sofas, but Lind's image was widely used to sell this product. The work of Tin Pan Alley composers was spread via this printed medium.
Printed newspaper. Yeah. Newspaper.
Sheet music.
Okay. Yes.
During Lind's first performance in New York, she sang a song written specifically for her by this composer. This German composed the grand operas Robert le Diable and Les Huguenots.
Les Huguenots is Meyerbeer.
20 points. Toss-up 4. J.P. Daughton's book In the Forest of No Joy studies one of these projects that, along with rubber harvesting, triggered the War of the Hoe Handle. One of these projects from the 1970s was an early foreign investment by the PRC and is called Tazara. The CGR managed these projects prior to the formation of the SAR using the Cape Standard. Portugal's...
Just railroads?
20 points.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
A non-controversial toss-up on railroads. Good. Your bonus. 6 different authors contributed stories about this war to the collection Evenings at Medan. 10 points each. Name this war the setting of the story Two Friends. In another story, a woman rings a church bell every day until the end of this war following a violent party.
The Franco-Prussian War.
Is correct. This French author of The Necklace set Mademoiselle Fifi and 2 friends during the Franco-Prussian War. Maupassant is correct. Evenings at Medan included this other Maupassant story set during the Franco-Prussian War, in which the titled woman is shamed by other passengers into sleeping with a Prussian officer in order to allow the safe passage of their stagecoach.
Yes.
30 points.
Nice.
Toss up 5. This artist's early training under graphic artist Samuel Jesurun de Mesquita was put to use in the 4-colored woodblock prints he used for making Double Planetoid. This artist's final print, Snakes, contains the rotational symmetry common in his late period. This artist, seated in his Roman studio, looks directly into the title object in his 1935 painting Hand with Reflecting Sphere. Tiles from the Alhambra inspired this art. Escher is correct.
Oh.
For 10 points. Your bonus, Herodotus wrote about how these people burned hemp and howled in joy at the vapor bath, even though they never otherwise bathed. 10 points each. Name these nomadic people who displaced the Cimmerians in the Pontic steppe. About 20% of their warrior graves contain women.
Scythians?
Scythians is correct. The Scythian queen Tomyris allegedly shoved this king's decapitated head into a bag of blood. This ruler titles a biography written by Xenophon.
Is that not the Anabasis? That's not a ruler.
Answer?
Anabasis.
Cyrus the Great, the namesake of the Cyropedia. Scythians decorated their war horses with these objects. Henry Hamilton earned the nickname Hair Buyer General for paying for these gruesome trophies removed from dead Native Americans.
Scalps.
Is correct for 20. Toss-up 6. A study of these beings includes pictures of Felicia Felix Mentor, who swept the grounds of a hospital. Wade Davis investigated stories of these beings in The Serpent and the Rainbow. Female Kaplatas and male Bokors create talismans and these beings, as described by...
Loa?
No. As described by Zora Neale Hurston in Tell My Horse. William Seabrook's book, The Magic Island, brought public attention to these beings, which Baron Samedi prevents people from becoming. The modern Western idea of these beings is often traced back to a George A. Romero film trilogy. Clarivius Narcisse claimed that he was given pufferfish venom and enslaved after Haitian voodoo turned him into one of these beings. For 10 points, name these monsters central to the film Night of the Living Dead. Zombies. Yes. Your bonus, because crystallization of these compounds is exothermic, supersaturated solutions of them act as the phase change materials or heat reservoirs in commercial hand warmers. 10 points each. Name these ionic solids that contain stoichiometric amounts of water.
Oh, hydrates.
Hydrates is correct. These lipids are a popular, cheaper option for large-scale heat storage. The paraffin type of these materials stores the heat used in candles.
Wax.
Yes. These mixtures are preferred over both hydrates and waxes as phase change materials for low-temperature heat storage. These mixtures occur at the triple point of a binary phase diagram when two alloys melt at the same temperature. Eutectic is correct for 30. Toss up 7. Drum-shaped boxes placed in this city's churches allowed citizens to denounce sodomizers to the office of the knight, who were promptly denounced themselves. This city issued a gold coin with depictions of John the Baptist and a fleur-de-lis, which became Europe's first common currency. The 8 saints of this city tried to undermine an administration led by a wool worker who had taken...
Maybe Florence?
Yes.
Nice.
20 points. Your bonus, this religion was heavily syncretized with Buddhism, leading to temples being built alongside shrines. 10 points each. Name this religion. Honji Suejaku theory describes Buddhist deities that are manifested into the omnipresent kami of this Japanese religion.
Shinto.
Mm-hmm. This Buddhist sect that studies teachings called Gosho venerates Gohonzon and chants words like Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. What? Oh, I see. Period. This sect was founded by its namesake in the 13th century, and the Soka Gakkai movement emerged from it in 1930.
What? No any Japanese.
Got an extra of that in there.
Fujimori.
This is Nichiren. Nichiren Buddhism values this text above all others. The chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo translates to glory to the Dharma of the This Sutra. This sutra claims that all humans are capable of Buddhahood. Lotus Sutra, yes, 20 points.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's
Toss-up 8. In the transfer matrix method, a simple form of this process is represented by an identity matrix. In AC power lines, the scaled difference between load and characteristic impedance is a coefficient named for this process, symbolized capital gamma. This process lends its name to the fraction of particles that do not tunnel through a barrier. This process is effectively blocked by a thin film if the path length is half this process's phase shift. The fractions of this process and transmission sum to 1. The angle of incidence equals the angle of this process on a flat surface.
Oh, shoot.
Refraction.
No. Optical signals are stuck inside a waveguide by the total internal form of this process. Reflection. Here is your bonus. This novel's narrator uses the archaic pronoun wagahai, which appears in its original language title. For 10 points each, name this Natsume Soseki novel, whose narrator eventually drowns in a rain barrel after mocking his owner, Mr. Sneeze.
I Am a Cat.
Yes, other cat-loving Japanese writers include this author of Norwegian Wood, who depicted a search for a missing cat in his novel The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. Nakata searches for lost cats and murders the cat killer Johnny Walker in this Murakami novel, in which a runaway teenager reads Soseki novels in a library and renames himself after the title person.
Kafka on the Shore.
Yes, a great book. You get 30 points. Here's toss up 9. A woman based on this character steals back Venetia Moore's fiancé Captain Fox in a story from Susanna Clarke's The Ladies of Grace Adieu. This character titles a utopian philosophical poem by Percy Shelley. This character causes a man to think of breaches, ambuscados, Spanish blades, and plates the manes of horses. After this character drums in a soldier's ear, he starts and wakes, swears a prayer or two, and sleeps again. This character has a whip of cricket's bone for a horse team of little atomies, and is in shape no bigger than an... Queen Mab. 10 points. Here is your bonus. Southern dialects often include multiple modals, such as might could, in phrases characterized by these words. 10 points each. Name these words whose auxiliary form accompanies their infinitive form and includes words like do, have, and am. William Labov defined the loss of an off-glide in diphthongs as a southern example of these linguistic occurrences in which the change in the sound of a phoneme causes other words to sound different. Answer?
Homonym shift. Is it? It's. I assume it's just one of those words.
Yeah, it says I can accept specific types of shifts, so...
Okay. Okay.
Sure. 10 points. Since after the Civil War, Southern English has undergone a merger of the vowels E and I, has undergone a merger of the vowels E and I, named for these two words.
It's not caught. Wait.
It's the pin-pen merger.
Okay, right, that's so true.
20 on the bonus. Yep. All right, toss up 10. Atoms with higher values for this quantity are weighted more in bonding orbitals and are placed lower in energy on MO splitting diagrams. The formal charge exceeds the oxidation state for the atom with a higher value for this quantity. Atoms with high values for this quantity increase the chemical shift of adjacent protons in the field effect and their acidity in the inductive effect. Atoms with high values of this quantity occupy the reddest lobes on an electrostatic potential surface. Dipole moment vectors point at the atom with a higher
Polarity?
No. Not polarity. A higher value for this property and bigger differences in it correspond to more ionic bonds. The Pauling scale for this property rates fluorine as a 4. For 10 points, name this ability of an atom to attract electrons.
Electronegativity.
That's the one. Yeah. Electronegativity for 10 for Sam. Your bonus. This king was found dead in Lake Starnberg next to psychiatrist Bernhard von Guden in 1886. 10 points each. Name this Bavarian king who'd been deposed 3 days before his death, following a diagnosis from von Guden.
Ludwig the Mad?
That's fine, yeah. Mad King Ludwig. Ludwig is perhaps best remembered for constructing an anachronistic one of these buildings in Bavaria with a 90-meter keep and a moat.
Castle.
The issue of a madness affecting German despots arose when Ludwig Quidde published an 1894 pamphlet on this much earlier ruler that was widely read as a critique of Wilhelm II. Some stories about this extremely hairy man's madness center on his fanciful floating bridge of Baiae.
What? I don't know who's had hair.
Who's
Barbarossa
hairy?
came from a beard.
Yeah, okay.
Barbarossa.
It's Caligula.
Oh.
20 on the bonus. That is the half. Currently have a score of 230 for Belmont, 150 for Rockford Auburn. 150 for Auburn. Going at a toss-up 11. Good luck, both teams. This composer developed a secret method for playing third harmonics in pieces such as his variations on the aria Di Tanti Palpiti. A ricochet playing style is used in a piece by this composer that also contains many double stops emulating the sound of flutes and horns. Paganini for 20. Here is your bonus. This musician played in the rhythm section on the live album Jazz at Massey Hall alongside Bud Powell and Charles Mingus. 10 points for 10 points each. Name this jazz drummer. He's best known for leading a quintet with Clifford Brown and recording Money Jungle with Mingus and Duke Ellington. Roach, Max Roach. The last track on Jazz at Massey Hall is a song played and written by this bebop musician titled A Night in Tunisia. This musician also wrote a song that involves singing an octave jump on the name of the title food.
Gillespie.
Yes. Jazz at Massey Hall is the last recorded session with Gillespie and this saxophonist credited with inventing bebop alongside Dizzy Gillespie. This musician was nicknamed Bird. Parker for 20. Toss-up 12. Okay. Sure. Low-quality products of this type were exposed in Samuel Hopkins Adams's The Great American Fraud. Francis Kelsey's concerns regarding one of these products led to the passage of the Kefauver-Harris Amendment. James Lewis blackmailed a company that produces these products during a series of 1980s murders in Chicago. A 1997 campaign by Boots allowed for TV advertising of these products.
Cigarettes?
No. Cigarettes is not correct. In the U.S., the only country that allows such advertising apart from New Zealand. These products are the second mentioned in the name of a 1906 bill, also called Dr. Wiley's Law, that mandated purity in them. In the 19th century, a common ingredient in these products was snake oil. For 10 points, name these products whose prescription type have to be approved by the FDA.
Pharmaceuticals?
Yes, that's fine, yeah. One of the many things that's okay. Drugs, medicine, any number of things like that. You get 10 points.
I mean, if they don't accept
And this bonus, while approaching one of these objects with a spaniel, Ronnie sings the song Bertie, Why Do You Bound? For 10 points each, name this type of object that titles a short story in which a girl claims that a man fled a house because he was hunted by a pack of dogs in the Ganges.
A window.
Yes. The Open Window is a short story by this author who wrote about the werewolf Gabriel Ernest and a boy who develops a religion around his pet polecat ferret in Sredni Vashtar. Saki's correct. In Saki's story Tobermory, Cornelius Appin is crushed by an elephant after supposedly trying to teach it irregular verbs in this language used by Hermann Hesse.
German?
30 points. House up 13. This figure ate fruits that were already bitten by Shabari. In some stories, this figure defeats his two sons in battle without knowing their identities. This figure did not slay a buffalo demon, but his victory over another demon is celebrated on a holiday by stuffing effigies with firecrackers and exploding them. In his absence, this figure is represented on his throne by a pair of shoes. When this figure is wounded, he's healed by a mountain of herbs brought by a monkey. After this figure kills an... Rama is correct, yes. It's you.
Oh.
The HSNT disrupted by Shabari Khan. Your bonus, this ethnic group has founded dozens of Swedish soccer teams, many of which use the wavy diagonal red, white, and blue stripes of its flag as a badge. For 10 points each, name this ethnic group whose language is used in the liturgy of the Chaldean Catholic Church. In 2015, ISIS attempted to bulldoze the ruins of Nimrud, an ancient city founded by this ethnic group in northern Iraq.
Kurds.
Assyrians. An alternate version of the Assyrian flag features a depiction of the sun with this unusual physical feature. A common motif in Zoroastrianism depicts the Fravashi spirit in this way, based on the Faravahar, rather.
Wait, I'm so confused.
Answer?
It has more than two arms?
That has wings.
Oh, okay.
The largest Assyrian diaspora community in the world emerged from the auto industry of this most populous city in Michigan.
Detroit.
Yeah, 10 points. Toss-up 14. A book titled for this author proposes Billingsgates and ritual spectacles as two sources of folk laughter. This author's use of the grotesque and carnivalesque modes was discussed in a book by, titled for this author and his world.
Rabelais.
Yeah.
Oh,
20 points.
Rabelais.
So true.
Oh,
Hmm? Yeah. Your bonus, 20 points on the toss-up. Here's your bonus. A 2016 report found that a third of genomics publications contains errors because Microsoft Excel automatically converts the names of genes into dates. For 10 points each, a major offender is the gene March1, which encodes an enzyme that attaches this very common 76 residue peptide to proteins targeted for cellular destruction.
So Ubiquitin.
That's named for being very common. Excel also corrects the names of septins, the proteins that divide the cytoplasm after this process of cell division, to dates in September.
Mitosis.
Yeah, they're all acceptable.
Okay.
The gene DEC1, which encodes one of these RNAs, was renamed to DELEC1 in 2021 to subvert Excel. Exist is another example of these regulatory RNAs, which are bigger than small RNAs and are transcribed from introns. Answer?
SNRNA.
These are long non-coding RNAs, or LNC RNAs.
Should be not small.
20 on the bonus. Here is toss-up 15. This city's current mayor once dated Mohammed Nuru ahead of its public works, who was sentenced to 7 years in prison for bribery. A 2022 Guardian article mocked the new $20,000 soft square public trash cans commissioned by this city. In 2022, voters in this city recalled progressive district attorney Chesa Boudin. In April 2023, public safety advocates in this city initially seized on the stabbing death of Cash App founder Bob Lee. During a home invasion, David DePape assaulted the husband of a congresswoman who represents this city. This city's
San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
10 points. That is Nancy Pelosi's husband. Your bonus: an entire floor of IBM machines in Baltimore's Candler building was devoted to handling paperwork from this program. 10 points each. Name this program begun during the New Deal. Alan Greenspan headed a commission that increased contributions to this program's trust fund.
The Social Security?
Yeah, that seems right.
Social Security?
Yes, this organization was pivotal to processing the 26 million Form 5s needed to enroll people into Social Security. In 2009, this government agency floated ending Saturday delivery.
Oh, the USPS?
Yeah.
USPS?
Yes. An Oklahoma senator of this surname interrogated Francis Perkins over the socialistic nature of Social Security. A Tennessee senator of this surname opposed the Southern Manifesto.
What's it?
Answer?
Walker.
Gore.
Oh!
Al Gore's dad.
Yeah.
He has a dad?
He's not autochthonous. You get 20 on the bonus. Here's toss-up 16. Description acceptable. Requirements for this property in materials are described by California's TB 117 standard. Aluminum hydroxide is incorporated into polymers because its release of vapors upon decomposition gives it this property. Tris.
Like being fireproof?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. 20 points. Project inflammable. Your bonus: the net displacement of a particle in a constant uniform field equals 1/2 this quantity multiplied by time squared. 10 points each. Name this quantity that multiplies mass to yield force in Newton's second law.
Acceleration,
yes.
yeah.
In the absence of an external field, the average magnitude of the displacement of a particle that freely diffuses according to a random walk scales with this function of the diffusion time.
Let's probably like square or log.
Sure.
Let's try square.
Square root.
Ooh.
For a particle in a field whose potential is given by this statement, the displacement evolves sinusoidally with time. This statement can be given as the second time derivative of x equals negative kx over m.
Another motion law or something.
Feels like Hooke's but really weird. I don't know.
Okay, Hooke's law.
It is Hooke's law.
Yeah,
Nice.
Good thinking. 20 on the bonus. Toss-up 17. A politician with this surname falsely claimed that Ronald Richter had built the world's first thermonuclear reactor on the island of Weymouth. The embalmed body of a politician with this surname was secretly removed from the CGT's headquarters. A former nightclub dancer with this surname was deposed by the national reorganization process after becoming the first woman to hold...
Oh, maybe Perron?
20 points.
Oh, yeah.
What was it?
Perron.
Perron.
Oh.
This is a very neat.
Here's your bonus. In Boite faith, the Kota people of Gabon rub sand on examples of these statues called ngulu to aid in decision-making. For 10 points each, name these statues created by Central African peoples as well as medieval Europeans that contain body parts or another object important to deceased family or religious figures.
What?
No, is it like the thingy jars? Like,
Oh,
is it the same?
canoptic jars?
Let's try that.
Canoptic jars?
These are called reliquaries or phylacteries.
Oh!
This artist claimed that a Fong reliquary was more beautiful than the Venus de Milo. This Spanish cubist denied that he copied a Pendé mask for one of the prostitutes in his Les Demoiselles d'Avignon.
Oh, no.
That's just Picasso.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, I don't know why you're writing.
A plinth along the back of Fong reliquaries give them the appearance of this action. A painted limestone statue of an Egyptian scribe from Saqqara is named for performing this action. Saqqara, right there.
Sitting?
Answer?
Sitting.
Yeah.
Hey!
What I've been doing.
20 on the bonus here is toss-up 18. You're doing it right now. The act of coming out of this place is identified with the renunciation of time in Simone Weil's Gravity and Grace. After being dragged up a rugged ascent, a resident of this place learned that the child of goodness is the source of the changing seasons. This place corresponds to Pistis and Acacia, the two segments of the visible realm, as described in the prior section's analogy of the divided line. This place features a low wall in front of a road on which men carry statues and figures of animals. In a story meant to show that philosophers should rule the ideal city, a man is freed from this place and learns that its shadow...
The cave?
The cave.
Okay.
You get 10 points. Here's your bonus. Lil Bit leaves the sexually abusive Uncle Peck at the end of a Paula Vogel play titled For Learning to Do This Activity. 10 points each. Name this activity, which the black man Hoke Colburn performs for Miss Daisy in a 1987 play that was adapted into a movie starring Morgan Freeman.
Okay, driving.
Driving is right.
Nice.
Alfred Uri's Driving Miss Daisy is part of a trilogy of plays that he wrote titled For This State's Capital City. The deaf-mute John Singer lives in this state in Carson McCullers' novel The Heart is a Lonely Hunter.
We're in the South. That's all I thought.
Alabama,
What's the thing
maybe.
with it?
Answer?
Alabama.
Georgia.
Okay.
The Atlanta trilogy. A chorus of drivers chants strike after Agate announces that the title character has been killed in this play by a different author.
Waiting for Lefty.
Yeah, 20 points.
Can we have a switch?
You may. 2 toss-ups left. It is 250, 410.
Out of curiosity, what was the easy part of that?
Driving, I think.
Driving,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Toss-up 19. One of these structures on a former almshouse in Beaune, France is decorated with polychrome tiles. An accessible one of these structures, designed by Snohetta, is much used by pedestrians at the National Opera and Ballet in Oslo. In traditional Chinese architecture, joints on a type of bracket called dogong are held together by the pressure of these structures. For the main terminal of the Dulles Airport, Eero Saarinen designed one of these concrete structures with a prominent catenary curve. The Chicago City Hall has a green example of
A roof?
a roof.
Oh, an accessible roof.
Yeah. It slopes down into the...
accessible as in-
yeah.
You can go on
You
it.
can-
No, it's...
I feel like accessible
As you can walk on it, yes.
Yeah, that's what I...
Your bonus, a manual discovered in 2022, revealed that the powder these people used to become invisible was made from charred owls and turtles. 10 points each. Name these Japanese warriors who are popularly depicted throwing shurikens.
Ninja.
Yes. Various ninja attempted to assassinate this first unifier of Japan. He won the Battle of Nagashino and overthrew the Ashikaga shogunate.
Oda Nobunaga.
Yes. Sugitani Zenjubo, a ninja who specialized in these weapons, tried to assassinate Oda with one of them in 1571. Troops wielding these weapons took up position along zigzagging palisades at the Battle of Nagashino.
Maybe like... I was gonna say guns.
Oh, guns make more sense.
Guns?
I can prompt.
Fire.
That's probably like muskets. Is that the right
musket.
type? Or is
What
that the
was your answer?
musket?
Not what I have. Arquebuses or matchlocks or Tanegashima.
Yeah, wrong topic.
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know what the...
20 on the bonus. Here's the last toss-up. This author described the angel of the Central Committee in a poem recounting his escape on horseback through a mountain pass from his book, Grapes and the Wind. After fleeing to Paris using the passport of the author of the Banana Trilogy, this author published both the captain's verses and a collection that describes moving from air to air as through an empty net, and states, "Arise to birth with me, my brother." 10 points. Your bonus, the first gallery for this type of art was Amsterdam's Dead End Gallery, though many of its works still depicted 6 fingers on each hand. 10 points each. Name this type of art created using programs such as DALL-E and Midjourney.
Virtual art, AR, or AI art.
Yeah. DALL-E relies on this type of model that involves adding or removing noise in an image to generate new pictures. The first AI image model to make its source code public is named for a stable form of this type of model.
Diffusion.
Yeah, Stable Diffusion. In December 2022, this website started removing images protesting AI artwork after its official policy became an opt-in for no AI tagging. In 2021, Epic Games acquired this portfolio website. A little more professional. It's ArtStation. 20 on the bonus. That is the game. Final score, 280 Rockford Auburn, 440 Belmont. Well done. It is lunch now.